across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. It's Collins in for Kyle for the next couple of weeks. It's Wednesday, the 5th of August. Coming up on the programme, this one is not leaving the news agenda, prison places. So, as I said just before the news, we've got 87,000 people currently in jail. That is predicted to get to around about 100,000 over the next couple of years. Simple question, who do we release and where do they go? You've got to have somewhere to put people if they don't have a registered bed to sleep in. We also learn today that 10,000, pretty much 10,000, just shy, domestic abusers are due for early release as well. How is that okay? Elsewhere, today is the day where public toilets and changing rooms have to be based on biological sex. The law kicks in. Tens of millions of pounds will be spent revamping nearly 13,000 toilets and 5,000 changing rooms across Britain so that they are compliant with the new guidance on single-sex spaces. On a related point, does anyone actually clean public toilets? Some of them look like the flipping Somme out there. It's absolutely ghastly. We'll look at that in a couple of moments. Also, Labour's plans to give 16-year-olds the vote could result in a surge of pro-Gaza candidates. What country are we living here, for God's sake? Pro-Gaza candidates standing at the next election. They had some success, of course, last time. Shouldn't we consider raising the voting age, not actually lowering it? I'd say about 40 is a good starting point. And on a more accessible note, what are the do's and don'ts of what you're meant to keep in your fridge? 3 in 4 of us are baffled by this, what should be a rather simple question. Does bread belong there? Would you put tomatoes in the fridge? What about eggs? That's a tricky one. Is that a yes or a no? It's dividing the nation, apparently. Details in just a couple of moments. Everything you need to know. We'll bring you all the breaking news. The way to drop us a voice note on any of these subjects and anything else you want to throw in, it's very simple. 0344 499 1000. Or, of course, you can message 87222. And to coin a phrase, look what the cat dragged in. Charlie... Charlie Rowley.
Good morning. Always a pleasure.
What a welcome. What a welcome. Do you know, I'm beginning to realise why I never got that job in hospitality.
Yes, customer service.
I can see why it went wrong. I don't know whether to start with toilets or fridges.
Well,
I mean, we like to start on a slightly lighter. We've got some serious stuff, obviously, and I say this a lot, but the whole joy of working here at Talk is this sort of melee of subjects, this buffet of and crunching gear changes we're able to perform. You can't get this on the Today programme.
No, this is a very rare show, isn't
You
it?
wouldn't hear Robinson wanging on about what to put in your fridge, would you? Folk would start pointing and staring. It wouldn't be right. But we can do that kind of stuff here. I will start with fridges, actually. I mean, it's a very simple question. What do you do with your kumquat?
Beg pardon?
Does it go in or does it stay out? The fridge is... What's interesting about fridges, we end up putting lots of stuff... Have you ever had a kumquat, by the way?
No, not recently. No.
Not knowingly?
Not knowingly. Yes.
I often cite the kumquat, and I honestly have to say I don't really know what one is, other than it's a sort of an exotic fruit of some sort. I've never seen one on the shelves of Lidl. No surprise, really. But it does... What's interesting about fridges is we put a lot of stuff in there that you buy from a supermarket that's not in a fridge. So if you buy tomatoes in a supermarket, they're not in a fridge, right? They're just in a rack. You take them home, you put them in a fridge. Why do we do that? Broccoli. I buy a bit of broccoli. I cut a few florets off and then straight in the fridge. Why do I do that? Potatoes. My mum used to have a veg rack kind of under the top. Well, you put all your potatoes. Keep them in a dark place, she used to say. I don't know what the... But they put them in the fridge with a light on. What's the deal then? What's the deal? What, an essence... Do go on, Charlie. Were you going to...
No. Just, you know...
Charlie's nothing to add to this.
No, just thinking about the sort of the kumquat in a sort of a dark, dark room or something, you know.
Yes, indeed, yes. It requires nothing less, yes, frankly. Yeah. It warrants it. Eggs does seem to be the one, though. Because, you buy a fridge, you often get an egg rack with it. Mm. So literally they supply the egg rack, and then the advice is don't put your eggs in the fridge. So I think once upon a time I was an egg depositor in the fridge department. No longer.
Oh, things have gone up.
Thank the Lord. What about you, Charlie? What do you do with your eggs?
Well, I would put them in the fridge, actually. Yes, I didn't realise that the advice was not to keep them in the fridge.
You say you would do, or you do?
I would. Yes. No,
you would, or
I
you do?
No,
I mean, are you intending to, or you already do?
Well, my fridge.
It's important to clarify.
My fridge is pretty bare, I have to say.
Is it?
I'm one of those that shops on an almost daily basis. I get what I want mainly for that day or what I'm having that evening. I don't buy in bulk. I'm just not really.
Well, when when I lived on my own, the Esso petrol station was my fridge because I would just round the corner. I'd just nip round there, whether it was milk or whatever I needed. But the egg is the great divider. Apparently, does it go in the fridge? And what about condiments as well?
I do keep my ketchup or red sauce, any other brand I'm assuming is available.
Is ketchup a brand? Is it?
Am I in trouble? I'll do a collab later on.
Got a phone call. It's Ofcom.
Oh.
Yeah. Get a £20 fine for that. Oh. No, it's not a brand, I don't think. Now, ketchup I've never put in the fridge. Mayonnaise, I would put in the fridge.
Oh, why? Why not ketchup?
I don't know.
Oh.
No, but it's purchased from the same aisle, right? I mean, you've got all that stuff in the brown sauce and ketchup I've never put in the fridge.
See, my mum wouldn't put it in the fridge. That would always be in the cupboard.
Yes.
All the sauces, mainly. But maybe, you're right, I think would be in the fridge. But I put them all in the fridge. I put my bread in the fridge. You talk about bread.
Bread's not in the fridge in the supermarket. Eggs aren't in the fridge in the supermarket. Tomatoes aren't in the fridge in the supermarket. Why do we put them in a fridge?
I think it's just a mentality. The idea...
We think it's going to make them live longer.
Yeah.
I think they could shrivel.
Keep it fresh. In the cold.
Yes. It's easy done, isn't it?
Shrivelling in the cold?
Every time.
No.
You don't. So I suppose the instinct is that a fridge is cool and therefore it's better, but not necessarily. You wouldn't want warm eggs in the kitchen.
No, but I'm assuming when things get transported from, so if eggs come from the farm they get loaded into a lorry or a van, or tomatoes they get loaded into. I'm assuming they are in a cool van or a cooled lorry of some description. I can't believe they're just sitting there for a day or however long it takes to travel.
Sunbathing.
Yes, sort of just in transit. I imagine that some of our fruit and veg is kept cool once it's sort of been harvested before it gets to the shelf, and then it's sort of displayed. And
I worked in Iceland, when I was at, not the country, the supermarket, when I was at school, we get two deliveries. You get your dry goods and your frozen goods. There was no kind of in-between. There wasn't sort of a hybrid for tomatoes.
It was either frozen tomatoes or...
They're sun-ripened tomatoes, aren't they? They're not cool fridge-ripened tomatoes. Mark has just brilliantly pointed out.
Well...
Which is why Charlie doesn't run a supermarket empire, because they'd be broke in a fortnight. Where's all the tomatoes? He stuck them in a fridge. Took him down the M6. Took about 5 hours.
No one's interested in coming to my house for dinner later on. The things that I can't, cook or concoct together. But what's in my fridge? Just bread and and eggs.
I mean, we haven't even got on to freezers yet, have we? I mean, that's a whole different ballgame. Omelettes. Random mention of omelettes. But it is dividing a nation. We don't know what goes in there. Here's what you can put in a fridge. You can put your apples. You can put your nuts. Sorry? You can put your crisps. Tortilla chips.
Crisps? Sorry. crisps in the fridge.
Who puts a packet of salt and vinegar? Who puts your quavers in a fridge? Berries can go in a fridge. That kind of makes sense. But why a berry and not a, for example, this is what not to put in a fridge: watermelon, potatoes, tomato, cake, bread.
Well...
See, we will lob it, so as our little boy's birthday on Saturday, there's always a bit of cake left over. The instinct is, I don't know whether it's just getting it off the top. Just stick it in the fridge, it'll be fine in there. It's a bit like chocolate in the fridge, isn't it? You know, some people just prefer cold chocolate.
No, I'm one of those people.
You're one of those people.
Oh, absolutely. And cake. I just think there is... But watermelon as well. I would put watermelon in the fridge. I would love a slice of cold melon in the morning. Well, usually if I'm on holiday, you know, but there's nothing better than, I think, cold fruit, which is refreshing, and it's sort of... It just...
Well, when you go to one of those hotels that has that kind of buffet, where you know, it starts there and ends in a different postcode. Yes. And you can see yonder, can't you? You just think, wow, what's that at the end there? There's something going on down there. Have you got a mobility scooter, please? I want to get down to the end.
We are at an all-inclusive in Benidorm now. I think with the sort of, you know,
those
long
things,
table.
I love those things.
Yes,
There's almost too much choice there, isn't there? I mean, I take issue with that toaster thing that seems to be universal. Whack it in there. We all experience this. Through it goes, out it comes, not toasted. Stick it in again. Right. Try turning the thing up. You turn it up, someone turns it down. Is it a health and safety thing? It never goes in once, does it? It never goes in once and comes out with any level of success. No. Nothing that resembles toast. It just looks like the bread you just threw in.
And the queue that forms behind.
Oh, the queue is barbaric, frankly. It's horrendous.
I just wouldn't have the toast. I'd leave the toast.
Yes. It's a queue that resembles when lottery tickets first came out, and people would be going, I've got to get one, I'm going to get the winner. So you've got all of that going on, and that's where you will find your melon, of course. Is that in a fridge there, then?
Oh, but a chilled melon.
Chilled section.
Oh, that's delicious. I can't think of anything better in the morning, so I don't know why they're saying not to put that in. But cake also, a nice slice of cold cake.
What, in the morning?
Well,
They do. That's the other thing they do on those kind of continental buffets. They do whack a lot of sort of sweet stuff on there as well.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that.
I'm partial to a pastry in the morning at times, so I don't think cake is any different if it's a hangover from a birthday or
I'm a monkey for a croissant.
Yeah.
Love it. Absolutely. Absolutely love a croissant. By the time you've got to the end of that buffet, breakfast is over, isn't it? They're clearing the first...
It'll be 10 o'clock.
There's a fella going in. Why are they clearing up? It's taken me that long to walk the mile of buffet that you've provided. The pastry thing is fine. That makes sense. The savoury, the sweet stuff is kind of a bit of a... You know, I understand a bit of jam on your toast. But the one thing I've never got my head around, and still don't, even though my kids are no different, I can't work out that it's a thing, and that's Nutella.
Oh, yes.
I don't want that swine anywhere near me. What a beast.
Really?
No, Nutella. Do you know, I swear this is true. I may have... Through basic kind of my grumpy disposition, which I know, it doesn't always sound like it, but I've got quite a grumpy disposition and an intolerance to stupidity. So I know we all say that, but even stupid people say that. But I'm sure the first time I saw Nutella, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was like stink bombs and things, or do you want some chocolate in a jar? See if he's going to go for it. I thought, really?
Well, it was
chocolate. Just have a Kit Kat, for God's sake. If you have to have chocolate for breakfast.
I mean, it goes with quite a lot of things, though, Nutella.
It's not proper chocolate, though, is it? It's not like...
It's a sort of
if somebody said it was a pot of melted galaxy, I might buy into it. But I don't know what this thing is.
It will go very well with your croissant, I think.
I couldn't contaminate the mighty croissant with chocolate. I might get a bit of jam on there, but that'll be it.
Jam in the fridge? Put jam in. I would put jam in the fridge. If I've opened the jam, which isn't as you say, it's not on the shelves in the supermarket. And so it is on the shelves in the supermarket.
Is this the thing? Is this the divide? Because I don't put jam in the fridge, but I have done. Is it once it's opened, you think? 'Cause, you know, put the sell-by date on there, but that sell-by date's applicable until it's opened, isn't it? Because once you open this thing...
Well, it also says, yes, once opened, you've got to consume within about a week, haven't you, or sometimes...
There's all of that,
4 weeks or something.
because I made some fajitas the other day. I love a fajita. I can roll those beasts like very few can do. I'm right into those things. And salsa, you know, that goes with it. There was some in the...
You dancing around the...
Salsa? What's it called? Salsa, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Salsa. Did I say that correctly in the first place? You made me doubt myself.
I think...
Salsa, yes,
I've just got visions of you dancing the salsa whilst making the fajitas. That's what I was...
All sorts of things go on in the kitchen when I'm solo. And I pulled one out. There was one on the top shelf in the fridge, and I took it out, and it was, you know, sadly, we had a contamination situation. Yes, it was, I don't know what was going on. I took that lid off, and it was just... It was like a womble was in there. It was just, this was not a thing you wanted to eat.
I see.
Now, that made no difference being in the fridge, clearly. It didn't salvage it from inevitable jip. Max says, Ian and Charlie, years ago our fridge had a salad drawer, but never put tomatoes in there. But one thing that does go in there is chocolate and fresh cream cakes. Fair. I've got a salad drawer in my fridge. Quinn in Rotherhithe says, morning, if eggs are not supposed to be kept in the fridge, why do refrigerators come with egg containers? Correct. That's what I mentioned. They have a little pod for eggs, but they're not meant to go in the fridge.
Well, yes, according to this. But the cake one, again, is interesting, because if it has got cream on it, if it's the icing or if it's sort of got that sort of layer of cream in the middle of the of the cake mix, then you think actually cream should be in the fridge.
Yeah.
I mean, cream is in the fridge to keep it. So you think the cream
It's where the milk is.
Yes,
right? Yes, well, that makes perfect sense. Pastries don't do well in the fridge.
No. Do they go hard?
They just perform some kind of biological thing. That was no answer at all, was it, really? James says, putting bread in the fridge is a hack. They don't want you to know about it. It literally lasts 4 times longer. And wait until you hear about the freezer. Yeah, we put bread in the freezer, don't we?
Yes, you can. I mean, I don't personally, because I...
Don't have any bread.
I don't...
Yes, I mean, literally, if you haven't got any, you can't put it anywhere, Frank. That's just a basic fact.
Usually.
Irredeemable reality. But yes, you can freeze bread. Bread lasts a long time now. Have you noticed that? It's one of the rare things that I swear when I was a kid, that bread lasted about a day. And that thing was as mouldy as muck. I mean, it was a terrible sight for sore eyes. Now, it's like, you know, I'll find a loaf of bread that I hardly remember buying, and I'll look at it and I think, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. No,
what are they putting in that stuff?
Well, who's...
But you think that's kind of counter... just sort of what you'd think would happen, where they try to get you to keep buying stuff.
Yeah, I mean, certainly bread, because I'm, you know, like how you used to be. I live by myself, so
yes.
Nobody wants me.
I think that's going to go on for some time, Charlie, to be honest. I just get that impression that you could be in for the long haul here, Charlie.
Yes, yeah. So start the car. I go to the supermarket, obviously, to shop for one.
Yeah.
See, the bread that I buy is not actually, you know, I buy the sort of the smaller versions, or the smaller cuts,
yes.
you know. And obviously I don't buy fresh loaves, which I don't think you could put in the fridge, actually, because I think they will. If it is real fresh bread, that probably still only lasts
Have you got a
day
separate freezer?
or two. I do, yes, I have a freezer below the fridge, yes. Yeah,
right, okay.
Very little in there, I'm afraid.
Nothing of note. OK. Yeah. Charlie, are you eating OK, love? We're just a bit worried about you.
Well, that's why I stick around here until after the shift. I'll go downstairs for...
he gets a discount breakfast.
In the morning.
Yes. We are going to take a short pause. We're going to be back with... so that's all the serious news out the way. We'll do some of the lighter stuff in a second. We are going to talk about prison places, back on the agenda as well. Single-sex spaces, that's largely toilets. I want to come on to toilets for a different reason, however, because there's some... Frankly, it's not a comfortable conversation at breakfast time, but it's one that, frankly, needs to be had. And I think it falls to me to raise it, to be honest, Charlie. We will do that. I had a terrible experience yesterday in a pizza restaurant. We'll come to that in a second. Let's get a voice note. This is from Perry. Morning, Perry.
Morning, Ian. You remind me of a butterfly. You just sort of like flutter around, you land on one subject, and then you take off, and then you flutter around a bit, land on something else, which is all very well, but it makes it very hard to leave a voice note because we never know where the show's going next.
Coalitions, i.e. cooperations in government, they achieve absolutely nothing. There is one party that has a real chance of winning a majority on the right in this country. We're going to fight to win. And we'd encourage everybody who shares the values that I talked about, who want mass deportations, who want a secure border, who want law and order, who want British people to come first, to get behind reform. But having said that, as Nigel said, of course we're willing to engage and talk to people from other parties, and that would include Rupert, yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the home of, I say the home of common sense. I mean, I think we should stop using that in the first hour when Charlie's on with us. You don't really get too much of that.
Just common.
A lot of that, frankly. Look at the muck in here. Let's get a voice note on the subject we've been talking about. This is from Fran. Morning to you, Fran.
Hi Ian, Fran from Belfast here on the important conversation of what we keep in our fridge. I'm a chef, so hopefully I can help you out a wee bit. With regards to eggs are porous, so what you purchase them from is what you put them in when you take them home. So if you buy them from the shelf in Tesco's, put them on the shelf in your kitchen. If you buy them from a fridge, you need to put them in the fridge because they're porous. Things can seep through the shell, like smells and tastes and stuff like that. The reason why we put tomatoes and things in the fridge is just make them last longer. It's as simple as that. Love the show. Bye.
Fran, thank you. So it's a last longer thing. Simple as that.
Well, yes, but
and Fran's a chef, so
and Fran
she knows her onions.
Absolutely, and tomatoes, and tomatoes, which she said you can put in the fridge. But this article says you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But I side with Fran. I mean, I'll defer to the chef, no end. I mean, when she said she was going to give some tips, I thought cooking tips might help, right? But,
well, I don't think you need any of those.
No, yeah.
You what, Mark? Yeah, put something in your fridge first. That might help.
Yes, thank you.
Or actually purchase the stuff. Yes. I love this. Dale in Halifax says, Ian and Charlie, I have a salad drawer in my fridge, but I keep it for cooling my slippers while it's been hot.
Oh, gosh. We thought the eggs were porous.
Yes, that's true. I like that. There's a strange... I mean, let's not get too much into it, but do you wear slippers?
I don't. No.
Peasant.
That's a I don't comma no.
So I've got a pair of really nice of those sheepskin numbers, you know, and they're a bit worn now, but you have to replace them every sort of twice a year or something. Because they wear out frighteningly quick, slippers, don't they? Considering they're not going anywhere. It's not like you're walking cobbles in the street in your slippers. They wear out pretty quick. And there's a couple of mates I've just loosely mentioned this to in a conversation. I might have said, I couldn't find my slippers this morning, or whatever. And they've gone, you wear slippers?
Is this
It's not like wearing a cravat, is it, in the house? I mean, it's the slippers, for God's sake.
And is this, you know, when you sort of get out of bed wearing your, you know, two-piece, you know, top and tail pyjamas and nightcap and...
All of that,
put into your slippers.
With a little candle. Dave. Dave says, morning, I thought I'd stumbled on an episode of Loose Women. Slow news day or what? Dave, can I just tell you, this is the serious news. Oh, yeah. This is what the nation are waking up to. What do you stick in your fridge? It's an old staple. I can come to a more serious one, however, and this has a couple of elements to it, and I fear we are going to go down the predictable, sort of irrelevant avenue on this. Today is the day when public toilets and changing rooms have to be based on biological sex. The process has sort of began. There were no objections to it, so they're now going to start doing this. It says here tens of millions of pounds is going to be spent on revamping 13,000 toilets and 5,000 changing rooms across Britain so that they are compliant with new guidance on single-sex spaces. So this is the first point. I mean, at the moment, aren't most things single-sex? Or are they talking about... So I was in a pizza place yesterday, and that's got one of those... The sign on the door is men, women, disabled, it does everything. A bit like a petrol station one. Anyone can go in there. Does that mean that's a no-no?
I think there'll be some places that have become totally communal. So it's sort of, you know, individual or gender neutral, where anybody can sort of go in and, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, but you have a sort of separate cubicle, you each have a separate cubicle to get changed in or need to use the loo. And I think those places might then have to sort of now just sort of determine...
But I don't know if I've ever come across one of these places.
I mean, I remember years ago, my public Lido was all sort of community.
There's a book in this.
And in fact, certainly it's swimming pools. So I know the one that I used to go to in Clapham, the changing rooms are all, it's completely mixed.
Is it?
Yes, yeah. You walk in and you obviously you walk in fully clothed, but when you go in to get changed, you get changed. Oh, I thought
I'm in a rush.
I thought I recognised you. I thought I saw you the other day. And you go into an individual cubicle to get changed into
right.
So
it's that would have to change
because all the lockers are there as well. So it's all you know. So I think that's what it could refer to. But there'll be some places that got rid of the single-sex spaces and wanted to make it communal because of the campaigning and the.
Do you know what?
The woke sort of
Broadcasting House, BBC, 30 years ago had unisex toilets. Now, they didn't do this out of some kind of wokey, like, you know, I think all genders should be mixed. It wasn't that. They just built them that way. This is an old building as well. You know, it was before they added that nice sort of plush bit on the back at taxpayers' expense so that the BBC orchestra can play in there once a decade. It's not that, it was the old bit. And they had, and I remember every now and again Terry Wogan or somebody would reference it on the radio. But it was nothing to do with gender or this debate. It was just the way they'd set them up.
Well, I remember, being in the department, you know, a number of government departments, but there's three of them which are sort of joined. They're in the same building and linked by corridors. But it's such a big building because you're housing these three government departments. And they changed and retrofitted a lot of their toilets to be gender neutral. So you still had your men's toilets, your ladies' toilets, you still had your accessible toilets. But then they had gender neutral toilets. Because there were obviously some staff that didn't identify as either or felt they couldn't use either. Bearing in mind, the men and women were the same because they were all cubicle-based.
OK, just putting aside people who are visually transition. So, you know, a guy decides he's a woman, and fine, I don't care what somebody wants to be or what they want to call themselves, but dresses or might have even had surgery and all that. Just put that aside. Somebody who just calls themselves non-binary, okay, which as far as I can make out, there's no biological or medical reasoning or analysis on this whatsoever. It's a term somebody chooses. Some people who used to call themselves bisexual have adopted non-binary as almost a contemporary term for the same thing. Others ferociously argue against that and say, no, it's not about your sexuality. It's about your gender. Now, if I decide I'm non-binary and I am met with the choice of a male changing room or a female changing room, say, well, I don't identify as male or female. I mean, for the purpose of that moment, I'd just go in the blokes, wouldn't I? For that... Why would it inconvenience anyone other than a left-wing troublemaker to go, I'm sorry, I refuse to do this, this is discrimination? No, it's not. Just go in the bloody blokes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
My biggest problem are pubs that decide to theme the name of the male and the, you know, hens and cocks and that kind of stuff, you know. And it's like, which one are you meant to go in? Ferrets and meerkats. I don't know which one I am. I could be either.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You're right. I mean,
guys and dolls, I get that. I know which one I'm meant to go in, but... You know, some of them, they try to be imaginative. And some of the signs, you know, you always look twice at the sign, don't you? I know it's meant to be a silhouette of a woman in a dress, but yes. I'm still sometimes unsure.
Yes, yes. It depends what you're wearing when you're doing a salsa whilst making fajitas.
That is very true, yes.
But you're right, you would just naturally... you need to use that. You would just suspend whatever, you know, because it's just going to the bathroom. It's not, you know, something that requires huge changes for an organisation to make just to accommodate if you feel you are non-binary.
I do have a sympathy that if you are fully transitioned and you look like, you know, you were born a man, but you live your life as a woman, and you look like a woman, and few people would mistake you for a woman, are you then... I mean, the argument is, the sort of J.K. Rowling line is that you're meant to use the blokes.
Yeah, I mean, look, And
I honestly don't know I understand notionally the intellectual argument behind that, but I do wonder whether that's kind of quite tricky.
Yes, yes, because if you are... let's say you haven't fully transitioned and you're on that path, and you're
at the halfway house.
You're at a halfway house, and you know you might, you know, in terms of exterior, look like a woman. So you might dress a certain way, you might apply a bit of makeup, more than I do here on a Wednesday morning. Thank you to the team here.
Yes.
You know, you might look externally like one, but obviously haven't had many or the appropriate surgeries to be a trans woman.
You don't have to have the surgery to be a trans woman.
Well, no, but then I think that becomes even more complicated. I mean, not saying that everybody needs to do that or should do that, but then it weakens that particular person's argument by then wanting to say, well, I want to use the woman's because you're biologically not a woman. You know, you are you identify as a trans woman. But
doesn't it ultimately come down to what you look like? Again, putting aside the kind of non-binary person that looks like a woman or a bloke, because that's their birthing, but they've just politically decided, I don't identify, just use the one that is under your birth. It will not impede your life. You're not being discriminated against because somebody hasn't spent £50,000 putting a bog extension on their business to accommodate you.
Well, I think the answer is, I mean, just maybe like some of the pictures on the screen, if you can see, you know, there are what we used to call disabled bathrooms, which I don't think we use that term anymore, and rightly so. I think we call them accessible bathrooms because they are for people, they are bigger, for people that have access needs. They're also used for people for baby changing facilities as well. So mothers that want to need to change their kids, they can use those spaces and don't have to use.
Yes.
And I just think if you are a trans person, that is a perfectly acceptable place for you to get. If you are biologically different to the gender that you identify, there is no harm, and I don't think there's anything wrong or offensive by saying there is an accessible changing room for you as an individual. Not because I want to exclude you from society, but to your point, if you are a biological man appearing as a woman, the argument that obviously women make is that actually they don't want a biological man in their changing rooms, in their safe spaces, because they are for women, and that is perfectly acceptable because it's for women's safety. But for also that trans person's safety, you're right. You know, a few eyebrows might be raised if you're a, you know, maybe the lower staff rugby team all of a sudden getting changed in the male change rooms, and all of a sudden somebody appears as a woman. It might not. They might be putting their safety at risk.
And we rarely talk about it the other way around. So if there's a woman that's transitioned to a man and has a bit of a beard going on and is a bit buff and they've done the gym thing, that often is the case. I understand why people go down that route. Is that person meant to change in the women's? Because despite, I mean, if you've seen Cher as an example, Cher the singer, her now son was daughter, you know, looks every bit a bloke. I can't imagine that person getting away with walking into a women's changing room without people saying, get out. That's a biological woman.
Yes, yeah, and look, you know, I think this is where I
don't know the answer.
No, and I look, you know...
Can I raise a more fundamental point? My biggest problem with public toilets is, can someone just bloody clean them, please? What is the deal there? Petrol stations, service stations are the worst. I had an experience yesterday in the aforementioned pizza place where my little boy said, I want to go to the toilet. So I took him to the toilet. It was locked. There was somebody in there. And then I kept hearing the dryer going. And then it stopped. So I thought, you know, when you hear the dryer, I thought, well, they're nearly... Because this toilet was right near where they cook the food as well. I thought, this is interesting. So I'm waiting. And then I hear the dryer go again. And then I hear the dryer go again. And then eventually, after about 7 minutes, the door opens and a woman walks out with 4 kids. So she'd taken all of her children to the loo. Now, this left a very unsavoury welcome for us, for my little boy to go to the toilet. I think there was a drain issue as much as anything else. And it was, I mean, it was a horror show in there. And they have the cheek, the absolute audacity to have a little piece of paper on the wall saying, this toilet was last cleaned by Pamela at 3:30. Number one, sack Pamela. What's she doing in there? Give her a mop. Give her some detergent. Give her some air freshener. Give her something. I mean, these places are carnage. I remember being at a motorway service station. It was... I know you have to... Look, it's a public toilet. It's not going to be to your liking. I'm standing there waiting outside. Usual thing again. There's somebody is inside. There's a... I don't know what he was doing. It sounded like... I'm not being too gross. It sounded like he was giving birth to a yak. I didn't know what was going on. It was horrific. I thought, this is not OK. Please, what's happening in there? Do we call a paramedic or do we call a cleaner? I wasn't sure which. In the event, 2 turned up. One of each.
I mean...
He wasn't dying, by the way. It just sounded like he was.
And there was no yak.
And there was no yak, no. But, well, I mean, I don't understand, because is it because individuals just act terribly when they're not in their own bathroom? Because you wouldn't treat your own bathroom like that. You go in, there's like half a toilet roll has been stuffed in the loo. There's pee all over the floor. It stinks to high heavens. The sink is rotting. The tiles are manky. That's down to the establishment. Graffiti on the wall as well.
No, you're absolutely right. I think environments, I do think, change people. I'm a big believer of that. So I think if you are in an area, whether it's a toilet, a public space, or whatever, a public place that's, you know, obviously not been well kept or not kept up to standard, then people just tend to add to it. I think it allows you. But if you go into, say, for example, if you went into a nice hotel, which if I'm walking around London and I, you know, need to, you know, relieve myself, I might pop into somewhere slightly more high end
than the Rose and Crown.
The Rose and Crown. And of course, you know, the toilets there and are lovely. Yeah. You know, so you maintain. You know,
so that is actually, I mean, hotels are actually the secret place to go for a drink as well. Bars in hotels are really nice. But public toilet, and the graffiti thing, I mean, who goes into a toilet, by the way, with a Sharpie in their pocket? I mean, do you just carry that around with you?
Yes, yeah.
I went into one in central London and somebody had, like, drilled a hole in the side of the cubicle. I don't know what that was all about. Goodness me. Things people do. Who takes a Black & Decker into the loo? Thoughts on all of this? 87222 if you're messaging, 0344 499 1000 if you're voice noting. On the issue of fridges, here's one from Rob. Morning, Rob.
Morning, Charlie. Morning, Ian. Rob, just got to say, talking about fridges, only 3 things are acceptable in fridges. That's beer, more beer, and bacon. Have a word.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Coming up on 20 to 7, we do actually, underneath this veneer of tomfoolery, we have some seriousness going on here. But back to toilets. Tony in Milan, that's a lovely part of the world. Milan says, there is a restaurant here in Milan. This is about how they divide which one's the ladies, which one's the men's. And we were talking about how, you know, establishments use sort of, they think they're being creative and cool, but you can't work out whether you're a meerkat or whether you're a ferret, you know, because they've decided to put some... anyway, Tony says, on one toilet, it just has the word blah written on it, and the other one has blah, 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 blah written on it. Guess which is which, says Tony.
Very good.
I love that. And one here from Andrea in Northampton says, please do not speak for women about men in our spaces. We do not want men in ladies-only facilities. Thank you. I can't speak for a woman. I can merely ask the question of what you do when somebody who looks like a woman, dresses like a woman, and everybody would think, is that person meant to go in the blokes? And similarly, the other way round, if there is a bearded, biological woman now living as a man, is that person meant to go in the same toilets as Andrea?
No, I think that, and that is the question, and that's why I think, you know, the more that there's been this encroachment of allowing the sort of, you know, the blurring of the colours, the blurring of the lines to allow people to use whatever public, you know, toilet or facilities they want to. That's why the guidance has come in to protect those women's spaces. And I think, look, I mean, I suppose the crux of it is to be serious for a second, is that, you know, that it is women who obviously come under far more attack than men. You know, women are more victims, overwhelmingly, obviously, more than against men. So even if you had a biological woman appearing as a man and wants to use the blokes, I think blokes would have less of an issue than that. And I think blokes tend to probably, because they are not the victims of, you know, crimes of sexual abuse or whether, I think they probably are slightly more at ease with whoever comes into their changing facilities than obviously women, which should be more protected.
Gary says, regarding the toilet situation, as per gender, where do folk who identify as furries go? In a bush, in the car park. I would imagine that's fair, isn't it? Yes. Dave says, Dave's in Aberdeen, says, try being in Scotland on the toilet door. Some have a female in a dress and the other has a man in a kilt. It's a fair point, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Martin in Lichfield. Morning, Ian and Charlie. Things kept inadvertently in the fridge. Shopping last week. Emptied everything into the fridge as normal, having lost the car... Emptied everything into it as normal, and having lost the car keys, found them in the tray at the bottom of the fridge with the beers. This cost 2 Ubers and a mystery of the missing keys for days. Not my finest moment. Has anyone else done a similar thing? No. I lost... I don't... this is hard to kind of sort of describe without seeing it. I don't have a wallet. I just have one of those little credit card wallets, and it's black. And it must have fallen out of my pocket, and it was exactly a match for the kind of plastic that goes around the seat in your car. and it landed on a ledge in a way that if you tried to throw it on there, it would never have stayed there. But somehow it must have slipped out my pocket or off my lap and landed on a piece of plastic surround of the car seat, and therefore was camouflaged for days. And I went through that car, I went under the seat, I was like, must have been millimetres from it. I couldn't find this damn thing for love nor money. And then I'm kind of into the territory of cancelling the bank card. I thought I've left it somewhere, and then there it was, winking at me 2 days later. It's very weird what you can do with keys. I have, interesting that Martin says this, I did leave some keys in the food cupboard. Same thing, you've come in, you've got your shopping. Normally put the keys on the key hook so I know where they are. But if you've got a load of shopping, you might be holding them in your mouth. You might not a good idea to do that, but you do these things, and you put everything down, and somehow it gets lost. So there you go. Martin's got a new one on us. Keys in a fridge.
Well, there you go. Yes, yes. I mean, I suppose I'd have to go shopping first to actually buy some food.
Yeah, something you've never experienced. Mark in Somerset says, Ian and Charlie, my missus drives me mad. Our fridge is full up with sauces, more than you could shake a stick at. In fact, there's no room for anything else. We often go to a well-known establishment run by a Mr. Martin, and all the sauces are left out at room temperature, not in the fridge. And my missus insists on putting them in the fridge. It's a fair point, isn't it? If you go to a Spoons or wherever, they stay on the table in a kind of, in a device.
But I just assume...
Which most places do, as Mark says.
Yeah, but I just assume that they just obviously get used up relatively quickly because of the turnover of people that are there. So I think buying a bottle of sauce and it'll be gone within a day. Well, I imagine a day or two, the amount of people that pass through. But
Joanna in Salisbury says, Charlotte and Ian... Sorry, not Charlotte and Ian. She spelt your name wrong.
Oh.
Not Charlotte, by the way.
Oh.
Charlo and Ian. Eggs in the UK and Europe, unwashed eggs keep a natural protective coating, the cuticle, that blocks bacteria, meaning they can safely stay at room temperature.
Well, now we know. But I don't know. There is still just something about cracking a cold egg into a frying pan, or then sort of whisking it up if you're going to make sort of scrambled eggs or an omelette. I don't know, there's just something... I'd put them in the fridge. Because I feel as though that if we've had such hot temperature like we've had over the last couple of weeks, just eggs sitting on the side, the sun might be coming in, and it might be sort of hitting the eggshell. I mean,
So it's rotting the eggs,
well,
is
yes.
what you're saying.
I mean, I don't want them to hatch. Just sort of...
I mean, that must have happened once in a while. There's always a story in the Daily Mail, isn't there? Once every 2.5 years, of somebody who cracked an egg and a chick flew out.
Yes.
Not really what you want. On a separate note, do stay with us, Charlie Rowley. I want to talk about Meghan Markle. She's posted a clip of her dancing to a happy birthday song, wearing a tiara-like headband, as Harry laughs and says, "Oh dear," as the Duchess celebrates turning 45. Also, Princess Eugenie, I think that's Fergie's kid, isn't it, has sired another kid, given birth to a little girl called Portugal, not called Portugal, she might be called Portugal. Portugal Windsor, in Portugal. Let's speak to Rupert Bell, Talk's royal correspondent. Rupert, morning to you. Meghan Markle, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes. I'm not sure it's always the gift that we want to keep on giving.
Should we have a little look, Rupert, before we kick off? Let's have a little look at Meghan having a little dance in the kitchen.
Oh, dear.
That's not really a dance. That's just sort of the movements of somebody who's taken something.
Well... It's just naff, isn't it?
Sort of post-festival, yes. I mean, I say that with fun, not seriousness, of course.
I think it's just their desperate need to always seem to be out there and posting how wonderfully fun they are. Pictures of that, a clip of that, her jumping into a swimming pool, that their life is just full of fun. Look, I suppose people do that. Is it quite normal? I don't know. I'm not one for dancing around the kitchen, but then I'm an old geezer, so it's probably those days are behind me. But they definitely always. Last weekend, of course, we saw the pictures of the Waleses and their children plastered everywhere when they went to the Commonwealth Games, and I always know that there's going to be some moment when she will respond. Now, it is her 45th birthday, and of course, in the royal family, photos and snaps do come out, certainly of the Waleses. We saw pictures of George when he was 13. But why do we need to see pictures of the Sussexes to this extent to commemorate her 45th birthday?
There's a lot of dogs in this video as well.
Well, that's nothing wrong with that. I mean, one looks a little old, but, looks, that's fine. But it just feels like it's, I'm showing that we're one big happy family and everything is all right in our world.
Yeah.
She also posted pictures earlier this week of her favourite raspberry sundae recipe, which and if I'll tell you, it doesn't sound to me as if she's gone out on a limb with this, but of course she's given it raspberry spread, her famous raspberry spread, vanilla ice cream, some shortbread, crushed shortbread, and let's not forget the famous flour sprinkles.
The flour sprinkles. It's a very big kitchen as well. I have to say, there's a fair degree of options. There's a chopping board in there, almost the size of what is she chopping on there? An ox? I mean, goodness me, it's massive.
Well, that's the only thing you remember in the food program. She was always chopping up fruit or moving something and then just laying it out in a sort of pretty pattern. So basically, I think her primary skill from her programs seemed to be her ability to chop various bits
of food.
Of food. Maybe I'm just choking on the thought of eating that raspberry sundae with the flour sprinkle. But that seems to me what it's about. And, they haven't had great publicity of late. The trip to Britain didn't go down well. He lost the court case. So they're having to find a way of regrouping. The one saving grace from these pictures is we haven't got any more pictures of the children from back views.
Yes.
Which again, and they talk about the famous privacy. Well, here they are. They seems to be filming stuff in their home, which you never see the Waleses do. We don't suddenly see pictures of the Princess of Wales in her kitchen. There is definitely lines of what they do. Yeah. It's going to be very interesting how the Sussexes go forward.
Indeed, they live a very extraordinary kind of private life, as it were. Just a brief word. Princess Eugenie gives birth to a baby girl, so the former Prince Andrew is now a granddad again.
Yeah, he's a granddad. That's their third child in Portugal, where they are based primarily. So from that point of view, she's absolutely happy. Look, it's been a difficult year for her, given what's been going on with her father and mother. She wants to keep out of the spotlight. What it does do, obviously, it means the Duke of Edinburgh goes down in the line of succession to 16th in line, because don't forget, Andrew is still technically in the line of succession.
True.
And their children supersede the Edinburgh's children. So that is, I suppose, the one sort of royal footnote from Woman Has Birth story.
Indeed. Love it. Rupert, thank you. Have a great day. Rupert Bell, Talk's royal correspondent, with us on the programme. Charlie Rowley is still with us. Mary in Cyprus says, good morning, guys. I keep lipstick in my fridge in the summer. You ever thought of that, Charlie?
Well, people keep, all kinds of beauty products. I mean, I say this if I was about to sort of reveal. You can get eye patches and things. People do put those kinds, wet wipes in the fridge, I think, to sort of help with cooling and things like that.
Fafa says, did I just hear Charlie say nobody wants him? Charlie, I will start a fan club or an appreciation society and go and get a cat.
Oh, well, that's very kind. I might, yes, I will. Oh, thank you. I'll join.
He's going to do all this today.
Group. Yes,
He'll be the owner of a little kitten. Gary in York says, you said no chocolate on bread. My dad used to eat Mars bar sandwiches back in the day.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. I mean,
I don't know. It's a bit of a thing.
Is it?
Pat says, Ian and Charlie, come on. Most goods say once opened, please store in fridge. I don't know if ketchup says that.
No, but
or does it?
I'm sure it says, use within 4 weeks or since opening, and therefore just think the idea of keeping it in the fridge keeps it cooler and fresher.
Roger in Hounslow says, I can't stand room temperature watermelon, raspberries, strawberries or grapes. They need to come from a fridge, as does chocolate and juices.
I'm with him all the way.
Do you know what I hate? In supermarkets, the strange thing is, I can't remember who it was that mentioned, oh, it was a voice note, wasn't it? Mentioned beers. A cold beer in the fridge is wonderful. Supermarkets tend to not have beer in a fridge, which is kind of bizarre. They have their little sponsored bit where they put a selection of bottles. But broadly speaking, if you want to buy a six-pack of Heineken or something, it's on a shelf. And then you've got to go home and stick it in a fridge. Do 20 minutes in a freezer first. That's a good point. Sean says, I was a supermarket manager. I ruined half a pallet of bananas by putting them in a fridge overnight. Didn't do that again, says Sean in Bridlington.
What's wrong with bananas in the fridge?
They don't belong in a fridge.
Well, but I thought that just keeps them fresh and cool. I mean, I agree with the fruit point. I like cold fruit. That is fresh and that is refreshing, like melon and berries and bananas.
Julian says, morning Ian and Charlie, what time is Jamie Oliver popping in? What's what we need? We're short of a Ramsay here, aren't we? We need one. There's a couple of chefs now in that family.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Yeah, his daughter is a chef and doing really well. Charlie, we're out of time. It's been a challenge, thank you, as ever. Charlie Rowley, back on Talk very, very soon. Lots still to come. Let's get the latest news headlines coming next.
I think what he suspects is that the leadership of Reform is in trouble with all these scandals, apparent scandals over donations. Reform, nevertheless, is well known across the country. Reform as a vehicle is capable, if it has the right leadership, of actually forming a government. And that with the weakened leadership of Reform, there's a risk that Reform itself will be lost. And he doesn't want to lose the potential of a vehicle that could provide the kind of government that he and I and others wish this country to have.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Secretary has brought forward a very rigorous plan in relation to this, and let's remember, of course, the numbers can fluctuate, but overall boat crossings are down quite significantly year on year, so that does suggest that the plan is working.
We've just witnessed drone footage of the French authorities handing out life jackets to illegal immigrants and then waving them goodbye as they head on their way towards the UK. So the French are actively helping and facilitating illegal immigration. In addition to that, the French forces did nothing to stop that huge migrant dinghy. In fact, the dinghy came out, then it went back to the beach to pick up even more illegal immigrants and then departed for a second time. During all of that, the French did nothing, and they even handed out life jackets and waved goodbye as these illegal immigrants head towards the UK. I think that's terrible. I mean that anyone who did cross the Channel and arrive in Dover could be immediately deported within around about a week.
Give that a second, he's just dragging a line by the look of it.
Is that a warning shot towards us? I don't know.
Well, I was trying to work it out.
Okay. The French officers could clearly see we were conducting an interview on the back of the fishing boat. They sailed extremely close to us and started firing gunshots, 11 live rounds. We could see the bullets hitting the water behind our boat. They weren't firing before their approach. They weren't firing afterwards. There was no notification of any kind of training exercise. So it did seem to me to be an effort to intimidate us.
The thing that I find, and I should say alarm clock Brits find so frustrating, Chris, and this is why I wanted you on this morning. Yesterday, finally, the unelected Messiah of Manchester stood up and said to consummate fury from most of us that Labour's plan to stop dinghy migrants is working. This, Chris, despite the fact that 1,000 illegal migrants have still come into this country in the last 9 days since he became Prime Minister.
Je suis un député dans le Parlement du Royaume-Uni. Why have you allowed the migrants into the water? Why haven't you stopped them?
Pourquoi on les saute pas? Ouais. Pourquoi on les saute pas? Our order is to let them go like that.
Your order is to let them go?
We just have to say to them, don't do that, it's dangerous.
So your orders are not to intervene?
We have to protect them.
Well, there's also protecting the border as well.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome back. It's 3 minutes after 7 o'clock, Wednesday, the 5th of August. Colin's in for Kyle for the next couple of weeks. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. Coming up on the programme, this isn't leaving the news agenda. Prison places. We've got 87,000 people currently in jail, predicted to get to around about 100,000 in the next few years. Simple question. Who do we release and where do we release them? Not everyone, and not everyone has got somewhere to go. We learned today, by the way, that 10,000 domestic abusers are due for release. How is that okay? Elsewhere, today is the day where public toilets and changing rooms have to be based on biological sex. In the next few days, they will begin this process. Tens of millions of pounds will also be spent revamping nearly 13,000 toilets and 5,000 changing rooms across Britain so they are compliant with the new guidelines on single-sex spaces. On a related point, does anybody actually clean public toilets? I mean, some of them look like the Battle of the Somme in there. It's grim. What's going on in our modern country? Also, Labour's plans to give 16-year-olds the vote could result in a surge in pro-Gaza candidates standing at the next election. Now, of course, those candidates did have, curiously, some success back in 2024. Should we actually consider raising the voting age, not lowering it? I'd start at about 40, frankly. And a more accessible story. What are the do's and don'ts of what's meant to be kept in a fridge? 3 in 4 of us are baffled by this. Does bread belong there? Do you put tomatoes in a fridge? And what about the big one, eggs? Is that a yes or a no? It's a tricky one. It's dividing the nation. We'll bring you all of that and everything else you need to know, plus the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. And on that point of fridges, it's always the light one that gets the big response. Let's get a voice note. This comes from Pete. Morning, Pete.
All this talk of fridges. Well, you know, there's only one thing you should keep in the fridge, and that's beer. Never mind anything else. There's no room for anything else in the fridge, especially in this weather, apart from beer. You could put your slippers in there or your underpants if you want to cool off.
That's a fair point. I don't know about your underpants in the fridge, but beer, absolutely. Ian says, watching American reality TV, I've come to the conclusion that their fridges are so big, they range from walk-ins to drive-thrus. All neat and tidy, well-stocked and come in nice brushed steel. There's something about that, and we've clocked that for years. There's 2 things about watching American TV when I was a kid. One was the size of their fridges. They were just massive, and they sort of clunked in a rather satisfactory noise, open and closed, and just stocked with loads of stuff, orange juice in like 10-litre cartons. And the other thing, before wireless telephones, teenagers who had phones in their rooms, remember that? But they also had a wire that you could walk around the entire house with. What was that all about? Our wire was about a foot long. He was almost nailed to the wall, talking to your nan. 0344 499 1000. Nigel Evans joins us, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, former Conservative MP. Nigel, morning to you.
Morning, Ian, and I've got to answer the question about bananas. Definitely not in the fridge. I don't know what Charlie Rowley is even thinking about.
Yeah.
My dad used to have a shop, and of course we never sold them from a fridge. And he used to tell the customers that the more speckly they were, the better they were for you. But I got an idea he was just trying to offload them before they went rotten. But there you go.
Yeah, they don't go in a fridge. Some people, you can buy like a banana wallet, can't you? That you sort of... it's kind of banana-shaped and it zips up and is meant to protect the longevity of your nana.
Well, I think, to be honest, I think my dad, although I'm not too sure about the science of it, but the reason you don't shove them in a fridge is so that they do ripen and, people buy them green and they want them to go yellow before you eat them. Otherwise, they're too hard. So I think a bit of speckle in them is actually quite good.
Absolutely bang on. Nigel, thanks for coming on with us. We'll speak again soon. That's Nigel Evans with Banana Data. Let's talk.
Very good. It's a great opener, though, for the day, and it's going to get Alarm Clock Britain jolly as they go off to work.
Absolutely, it does. I mean, it's quite seriously, there's always a point, no matter how old you get, where you go, does that go in the fridge? I think it does. But vegetables, they're not sold in fridges. And yet we tend
eggs, too, is the other thing. And no, I wouldn't put eggs in a fridge either. We never sold eggs again from a fridge.
But they do, as many people have pointed out, Nigel, they do, if you buy a brand new fridge, they do come with a little egg container, a little rack.
Yeah, they do. That's true. You better get Egwina Curry back on.
Hey!
The old minister who clearly put the fear of God into the egg industry.
She put the fear of God into a lot of people, Nigel, let's be honest, for all different reasons. Let's look at this first story. This new guidance on single-sex spaces comes into force. It's the new EHRC guidance. It's for England, Scotland and Wales. It's taken effect on the 5th of August. This code means that providers need to apply the Equality Act 2010 to services designated for one biological sex. It's a very simple ruling. There are some logistics involved for all those companies that decided, no, we're going to have anyone using any loos. They've got to now change them back.
Yeah, I particularly, I'm so happy for women that they now are going to get their toilets back exclusively for women. I think that is absolutely right. I feel a bit sorry, though, for some publicans who are now going to be scratching their heads, and indeed some theatres where, those theatres were built 100 years ago, Ian, in the good old days when there were only men and women. And they've hardly got enough toilets for the patrons that they've got going there now. And a lot of these businesses just simply haven't got the money to invest in new toilets or whatever. So it's going to be quite difficult for them. But I suspect that the people who will be rubbing their hands will be lawyers, because no doubt this is going to produce a few legal cases from particularly trans people who say, hold on, we're not being catered for.
Yeah, indeed. And it's... Look, I mean, I get it. It's obvious stuff, biological sex, biological spaces. That's where women get changed and use the loo, and that's where men get changed. I don't have an opinion on this. I just have a question, and I don't know how to answer it. If somebody has transitioned and lived their biological male, lives his life as a woman, to all intent, I mean, there are some clear examples. I don't say this to be mean, merely to make this point. Clearly examples of quite a lot of blokes who think they're women and clearly don't look like one, sound like one or act like one in any shape or form. But there are exceptions to that. I've interviewed quite a lot of trans people that I wouldn't know that they were originally blokes. They're going to be told to use the male loo, I guess, under this legislation.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult one, this, because I was out with somebody a few months ago who has transitioned to a woman with a dress, looks like a woman, absolutely, right? So for all intents and purposes, a woman. And yet that person will now be expected to use the gents' toilets, with a dress. I mean, it's going to be very embarrassing, I would think, on a practical scale. But maybe the answer, Ian, is that to do what a number of places are already doing, which is just designating toilets as toilets, and that is it.
Yeah.
so that people go in, close the door to a single-space toilet, and so there's no men and women anymore, or gents and ladies. It'll just be toilets, and I guess that is the proper way around it. But as I said, what are pubs who are already finding it very difficult? Where are they going to find the cash to be able to convert all their toilets into basically single-sex spaces?
What I find another confusing layer to this entire debate, Nigel, is I've done this job for about 30-odd years, and up until 5 years ago, I could honestly say that this was the whole trans issue, the whole gender issue, it never once came up. I mean, we did debates on Europe, we did debates on capital punishment, we did debates on whether it's good to be a vegetarian, we did debates on the news of the day. Never once did this subject come up. And then almost out of nowhere, feels like 20 minutes ago, suddenly this explosion of gender rights, gender spectrum. I don't think this discussion came from, for want of a better phrase, the trans community. I think this came from those that are obsessed with identity politics, people pretending they don't have a gender because it's rebellious to do so, people pretending there's 120 different genders. That's where it came. Do you remember when Nadia won Big Brother years ago? This was a trans woman. Nobody blinked. Nobody said a word. Faye Presto is a well-known table magician, certainly used to be. Nobody said a word. India Willoughby, I know, very animated and colourful these days and quite evangelical, frankly, in my view, slightly deranged in some respects on social media, but never said a word. The first time I interviewed India Willoughby, I didn't know India was originally I just didn't know. It never came up. This stuff was not there. And then suddenly it's come out of nowhere. So I would blame squarely not trans people in that sense, in the conventional interpretation of that description, but gender evangelists more than anything else.
Yeah, it sort of passed most of my life as well. Of course, when I was growing up in Town Hill in Swansea, we only knew transmission. That was about it. There was nothing other than that. But now, of course, as I said, I was referring to the days when there were only men and women. And you're quite right. It does seem to be a relatively new phenomenon that all of a sudden everybody is expected to make provision for what is an incredibly small percentage of the population. Yep. I mean, my eyes used to roll when I'd read the newspapers about some kid that was going to school and decided that he was going to self-identify as a cat. And of course, they were pandered by the teacher that they were able to do that. I mean, bonkers, absolutely bonkers. But it does seem to be something that seems to probably dominate a percentage of people's minds these days, which is totally disproportionate to the number of people that are affected by it.
Yeah, 100%. I think this goes into other areas of politics and kind of extreme views.
But Ian, listen, I've got to say, by the way, I saw your tribute to the great Rod Liddle the other day. This is one of those areas, of course, where Rod wrote large, and what a great man, and how much I think all of us are going to miss him. I mean, I knew Rod, and what a free, great spirit he was. And as I said, this was one of his marvellous issues that he wrote a lot about in The Spectator and in the Times.
Yeah, I thought the best bit was of the tribute to him came from his own kids, who said, and it was a nuance in what they wrote in their comments. They said, Our father or our dad brought us up, as you might imagine, to be inquisitive and humorous and all the rest of it. It was that phrase, as you might imagine, because you would just know that that's how Rod Liddle would bring his kids up, with that kind of mind, that sort of thinking.
Do you know, my thoughts are with them and Alicia as well. But, I heard somebody say that people used to buy The Spectator and go straight to Rod's article.
100%.
And that's what I used to do. I used to open The Spectator and go straight for Rod. Same with the Sunday Times, go straight for Rod's article. And my goodness me, aren't we going to miss him? And isn't life going to be a bit duller? I mean, he was Mr. Anti-woke. His eyes would roll, and he would say the things that other people were thinking.
He would, even on this issue, you kind of have to, obviously we live in a world of quite a lot of sensitivities, and, we have this organisation, this government-funded organisation called Ofcom that are always on your case whenever you mention anything about this whole area. But Rod didn't really give a hoot about any of that stuff. He just wrote and said stuff. And talking to Kevin O'Sullivan about this yesterday, Kev's quite forthright himself, but Rod would take it to not the next, Clarkson obviously divides the room again for similar reasons, but Rod kind of went to a whole different place when it came to thinking. But it wasn't that, you never got the idea that he'd sat there and gone, right, how can I upset some people? He'd sat there and written from a very colourful heart and mind that just saw things in a certain way and decided he wasn't going to dilute them, he wasn't going to somehow dress them up and make them pretty or adhere to some kind of rule or regulation. Just said what he thought and brilliantly put it into print.
Yeah, that's right. You couldn't put him in a box, left or right. And I am disgusted by some of the comments from the Love Not Hate Brigade, who seem to have all risen to go to Twitter in order to print their bile about somebody that clearly they didn't care about.
Yeah.
But I've got a good idea. Shut up.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Shut up, get in the bin. Simple as that. To bring it back to something that I know Rod did write on a number of occasions about this whole trans thing. What's interesting now, we've got 13,000 toilets and 5,000 changing rooms in this country that need to be converted back to replicate the new EHRC rules on this. Which is going to cost millions of pounds, and one would assume that's down to the establishment that changed them in the first place.
Yeah, well, maybe this is Andy Burnham's great idea now to get growth back in the economy. As you know, the Chancellor seems to want to change the fiscal rules in order that he's able to borrow billions more. 9 billion, I've read the figure today, and maybe and they want to do it for growth, and that's how they're going to try and get around it, so that it'll go into infrastructure. And of course, 12 million on toilets will be, I guess, the start of it. I mean, it is, it's a lot of money, I've got to say, and I do feel for a lot of those independent businesses that do have toilets, whether they're cafes or pubs or whatever they happen to be. A lot of them are not making any money anyway. And I just do hope that the local authority are not going to go too hard on them if their toilets are not completely compliant with whatever rules are coming out at whatever time.
Indeed. Nigel, we hit the clock, but it's been great to have you on. Lovely tribute as well to Rod Little. Thank you for that. And great banana detail, too, at the beginning. From Nigel Evans. He is, of course, former Deputy Speaker in the House of Commons, former Tory MP, big friend of the station as well. Thank you to him. 0344 499 1000. Carl in the Lake says, I don't put my keys down anywhere. This is about losing keys and stuff. They were on a long chain like a prison officer, and it's attached to a belt eye on my jeans. They never go away. There was a phase when blokes would, people would walk around with a big bunch of keys just on the side of their... And back in the day, it was always the sort of person that wore a kind of an over-ambitious Bluetooth headset as well. Same person seemed to love big bunches of keys and those big Bluetooth headsets. No hiding away from anything in that respect. Thank you for that one. Carl, 0344 499 1000. More on the way from you. Can voice notice on that number as well, and you can message 87222. Oh, we've got a voice note as well. I do apologise. Back to fridges. This comes from Adrian. Morning, Adrian.
But for clarity, I believe technically you either keep your eggs out of the fridge and in a cool place, or if they go into the fridge, you can't then subsequently bring them out and leave them on the side in ambient temperature again. I believe the chilling affects the internal membrane of the egg and it will now go bad. So you've got to make your mind up, either leave them out or put them in the fridge. And in case of our family, they sit in a nicely positioned egg rack on the work surface in the kitchen.
49,000 people are leaving Morocco because apparently it's war-torn. But Jet2 this morning are offering 20% off a trip to Morocco for a week. Which country in Europe wipes everybody else's backside but its own people? Here.
This is a huge football story, folks. UEFA has now said no European nation will participate in any FIFA competition so long as proposals to create a company to run the World Cup remain alive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, welcome back. 22 minutes after 7 o'clock. It is the home of Common Sense. It's Ian Collins in for Jezza for the next remainder of this week and the following week as well. Lots to get through. Some big stories out there as well. And let's get a word on one particular area we focus on in a big way on a regular basis. Lee Anderson joins us, Reform UK MP for Ashfield, also chairman of Reform UK. Morning, Lee, to you.
Good morning, Ian.
Nice to have you with us. You're over in France as we speak. I know you've been having a little look around there. We'll come to that in a second. I just want to talk briefly about this mega dinghy yesterday. 157 migrants on board, caught fire in the Channel. I think it was nearer the English side when it happened. The French got involved and towed it back with the people to France. I mean, the upshot of that, and thankfully, as I understand it, everybody was safe. But it can be done, was what I took from this.
It just proves the point we've been trying to make all along, Ian, that you can take people back to France. These people were thankfully rescued, no lives lost, as you say, but it proves the point, like I say, we've been making all along, that it is possible to pick these migrants up in the Channel and return them safely to France. And if we did that on every single dinghy, because let's be honest, these mega dinghies now, there's no way they could make it across the Channel in one piece. At some stage, they're going to sink and cost lots and lots of lives. So every single dinghy, in my opinion, and that of Reform UK, is an accident waiting to happen. So these people should be rescued and returned safely to France. And I think once we start doing that on a daily basis, the trade of human lives across the Channel will stop very, very quickly. And this benefits not just us, it also benefits France as well.
Yeah, although they claim, I think yesterday they put out a statement in response to Nigel's comments about using the military, particularly the Navy. They said it would be a breach of their sovereignty. I don't know who really cares about that. But then they talked about maritime law, and this comes up all the time, maritime law. Richard Tice was with us a little while ago explaining why that's a complete misnomer, a bit of a red herring. Tell us more on that, because that will be the French position, won't it?
Well, the key thing here, Ian, is that we have to save lives in the English Channel. Yesterday could have been a complete disaster. We could have lost over 100 poor souls there. We saw, I think it was 4 women just a few weeks ago lost in the Channel. Over 160 have died in the Channel that we know of in the past 5 or 6 years. So this is about rescuing people. It's about saving lives as well. And it's about doing the right thing. It's about stopping this trade of these illegal migrants coming across the Channel. And if we can stop people dying in the Channel, if we can save lives, then, and by the way, we're giving France close on £1 billion to help them stop the people trade. And France, by the way, have said consistently that they want to stop the migrant crisis. So if we can help them stop problems in their country and stop it in our country as well, then I can't see the French, kicking off really. If we are saving lives, then we return these poor souls to their shores. Obviously, they're making some noises at the moment, maybe playing a little bit of politics. I don't know. But the key thing here, from our point of view, is we have to save lives in the Channel.
Absolutely right. And you know, I've always said this, Lee, that whether you're left wing or right wing doesn't really matter. Anyone with a brain can see this story is completely unacceptable. And whether people come at it from a humanitarian perspective, whether we come at it from a, just the sheer level of how unacceptable it is to have 1,000 people a day breaking into a country, whatever angle you come at it from, nobody surely could say this situation is OK. As you rightly say, the French, they have thousands of people on their northern borders ready to go. They don't want that either. So, it can't be beyond the wit of mankind to do something pretty straightforward and solve the problem. And I think Nigel Farage said within a couple of weeks under a Reform government.
Well, it would stop. I mean, why would people in these camps, risk their life, come into a country knowing that a few hours later they'll be back on the shores of northern France. So the ones that do make it through, whether that be on boats or in the back of lorries, if they knew that they would be detained and deported and not allowed to roam our streets, not be put in hotels, just in a secure camp and no freedom, they would stop. Why would they come? It doesn't. I mean, the solution is very, very simple. It's just that over the past 10 years or so, we've had weak governments led by weak politicians who are not prepared to put the interests of the British people first. My constituents and people all over the country have had enough of this. They're really, really cheesed off.
Absolutely right. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing over there, Lee. I know you've been having a look around some of those camps and the people that are, I guess, waiting to jump on a boat at some point. What have you found?
Well, we've been on the beaches for 2 days running. Both days we've been hassled by the local French police. They've turned up armed to the teeth, looking very aggressive. We've had to arm ourselves, actually, with gas masks. They're checking our ID, wanting to know what we're doing here. They should show as much enthusiasm, I think, with the migrants. They seem to be waving them through and hassling us. But this morning, they asked for my ID. I told them to clear off. I said, you got it yesterday. You're not hassling me on the beach on my morning stroll. But what we did see in the migrant camp yesterday, 2,500 migrants there, a little bit different from the last time I visited in that there was a lot more women and children there, lots of men there, and funnily enough, most of the men, when we walked past with the cameras, they were covering their faces up. It makes you wonder why they're doing that. Probably they wanted for some sort of crime in their own country. And why on earth would you cover your face up when the cameras come by? And bear in mind that a lot of these men, well, all of them, if I'm honest, at some stage will end up in the UK. I don't want these people in our country, neither do my constituents. But the thing is, these people living in these camps, these men, these young, undocumented men, they'll be coming to an HMO on a street near you very, very shortly, mark my words.
Yeah, and you're right, they're literally only in that location for that very specific purpose. There's no hyperbole or kind of drama in you saying that. That's literally the facts of it. What do you take from, I've seen different documentary crews have tried over the years to sort of ascertain who these people are. They come from a range of countries, we know that much. Iran, at one point, as you're more than aware, Lee, at one point Iran was kind of the biggest number of people. That was the biggest country. Now, right now, given that we're at war, tacitly or otherwise, with Iran, you might think that would be the point where any government would draw a red line and say, right, anyone coming in a boat right now, given the fact you are arriving, some are arriving from the country that is the greatest sponsor of state terrorism on the planet, you ain't going into an HMO or the Four Seasons. You're going to be locked up because we don't know who you are.
Well, the thing is, we don't know who these people are in the camps, and you can't always trust what they say to you as well. They could be from any country. They could just be, just lying to you. But they know, Ian, that once they get on a boat, they can come to our country and pretty much do what they want. They're never going to get deported. And this trade, the most aggression that we've had over the past 2 days in France has been from the police and from the NGOs in the camps. They tried to clear us off. They were very, very aggressive. And, this is part of a huge, huge trade in people smuggling. Yeah. It's so easy now for the people to get across the channel. And as I'm sat here on this river, which is literally 200, 300 yards away from the sea where the boats come up this river, actually, and go to the sea. We've even got a signpost behind me, but you can't see it. It says the United Kingdom that way. It's just
really?
Really. It's true.
Someone's taking the pee, aren't they?
Yeah, they are taking the pee.
Again, hard to ascertain this, Lee, but just a final point. What did you, as best you could, extrapolate from the reasons these people are there? Did you, and again, I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth here, no. Did this look like a group of young men that are escaping tyrannical regimes and war zones?
No. They might say that. They're being coached by the NGOs in the camp what to say when you're approached, being coached, what to say in the UK. And funnily enough, all those politicians on the left that we do battle with on a daily basis, they always seem, when I say why they're leaving France a safe country, they always seem to say, well, maybe it's because they can speak English. Let me tell you, we couldn't find anybody at the camp yesterday that could speak reasonable English. We found a couple who could speak a little bit, a lot of it was just Arabic. And one of these Somalians that we spoke to was threatening to do all sorts of damage when he got to the UK, to stab people and rape people and kidnap people.
Wow.
I don't think he's going to culturally enrich our country somehow. And this nonsense that they come out, diversity is our strength. I don't want any diversity like that. This man should be shipped off as soon as he arrives on the shores of the UK.
Yeah, but he might be a neurosurgeon or an engineer, Lee. You've got to remember that.
He could be living next door to you, Ian.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely spot on. Yeah. Lee, I know we've got to let you go. Great to have you on. Enjoy the rest of the day. I know it's a tricky story you're covering there. Thank you, Lee Anderson, Reform UK MP for Ashfield. He's also, of course, the chairman of Reform UK over there in northern France. Thoughts on that? Our lines are open. You can leave a voice note there as well, 87222. We've got a range of subjects here. We've got the light, the shade, the serious, the more light-hearted, and toilets. Chrissy is in Spain. What have you got for us, Chrissy? Morning.
Good morning, Ian. And Charlie, if he's there or not around.
He's legged it to the canteen for a bacon butty.
OK. I'll have to be his housekeeper, I think, and make sure he's got a well-stocked fridge.
Yeah, he needs that.
Well, the toilet, when I was in England, when you went to the public toilet, there was always a lady there with a dish, and you had to put 3 pence in, 3D pence.
Wow, that's going back a bit, right?
I know. I am 78.
Oh, OK, fair. So you paid, as you went to the loo, there was somebody waiting, what, with a mop and a dish?
Yeah, just a dish, and you put in 3 pence. Well, I think you could put in what you wanted, but
yeah,
I put in 3 pence usually. And they were quite clean then, and I don't know about here, because in Spain there aren't no public toilets very much. You go in the bus station or the railway station, they're pretty gross sometimes.
Yeah.
So I never use them if I can help it.
Yeah, I think we all try to swerve them if we can, don't we? I mean, they're pretty grim place. You sort of think, well, what does somebody, without getting into too much detail here, Chrissy, but you wouldn't behave that way in your own toilet, I'd like to think. So what happens when you get in a public loo, or is it just an accumulation of bad behaviour?
I mean, when I go in a toilet here, I mean, most of the restaurants or bars are pretty good.
Yeah.
They are quite good. But if there was some paper on the floor, now I always want to pick it up, and then I think, no, I better not.
Don't pick it up.
Yeah, bare hands, you know.
Indeed. Fair point. Chrissy, thank you very much indeed for that. 0344 499 1000. Back to food. Does it go in the fridge? Does it not go in the fridge? The two items that seem to divide the room are eggs and bananas. On that point, here's a voice note from Phil. Morning, Phil.
Morning, Ian. It's Phil from Durban. It really matters where you live. If we live in Durban, South Africa, if you leave your bananas or eggs out of the fridge, a monkey will probably come in and steal them all. So we keep our bananas and our eggs in the fridge for that reason. Great show.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
25 to 8. This in from Keith in Oswestry, who says, on the question of men and women's toilets, I was attending a golf tournament in Dubai with my wife. We both needed to use the facilities, and there were temporary toilets for men and women. There was a queue at the ladies, but no queue at the men's. I went to the loo. When I came out, the wife was still queuing. She asked me if there were cubicles in the men's toilets, to which I replied, yes. She then went into the men's loos to relieve herself. On exiting, other women in the queue saw this and decided to use the men's toilets. The only problem was that so many women were using the men's that a queue formed there as well, and the men were having to wait. I'd have used the ladies on that basis. If you go to a theatre at during the, interval, I don't know why this is. There's a massive queue for the ladies. There's about 3 blokes. Do we just hold it better? I appreciate, women have other things they might need to attend to. I get that, even if it's just makeup. But there is always a longer queue. Now, of course, it will be, I don't know if it's more simple or less simple, because the new rulings on single-sex spaces, which predominantly are about toilets and cubicles, begin to come into force today. So any establishment that has decided to go rogue over the last couple of years and decide to woke up your lavs, then believe me, think again. It's going to cost you to put it back to normal. It's men's and women's, and that's how it is. Law of the land. Let's get a word on immigration, as we do quite often. We were just talking to Lee Anderson about what's happening in France. He's over there in northern France. Kevin Foster is former immigration minister. Kevin, afternoon or morning to you, I should say. Look, I say this often. I've forgotten how many times we've talked about these kind of subjects. It's eluded, it seems, every government. Very simple case. If someone's come over to this country in a boat, you put those people onto another boat, you treat them very nicely, give them a warm drink and a blanket if they're cold, and then take them back to France. That's the reform position now. Why can't that work? Why didn't it work? Or why wasn't it even discussed when you were an immigration minister?
Well, it was certainly discussed. The core issue is the fact that France said no. And that's the difference. Perhaps people seeing what happened with that boat that was on fire, where British vessels went into French waters and then took people back to France. That was because France had specifically asked for assistance. It's not actually the first time that's happened, where then a UK vessel goes into French waters with consent and takes them back to the French coast. That's the big difference with what Reform's suggesting, is that Reform's suggesting the Royal Navy should operate in French waters without consent, and that the Royal Marines would then drop people back onto French beaches with the French authorities saying they shouldn't do that. Now, the French, in reality, are not going to open fire on our forces. That isn't going to happen the same way as Reform saying they wouldn't order the Navy to open fire on migrant boats. I think we can rule that out as a thing our military would ever do. But what that does mean is, for example, they could seize our boats. They may look at other measures. So that's the big difference here. Is this would have been an ideal solution. It's one we'd absolutely love to have had.
Yep.
But Macron has always said no.
But what physically would actually happen, Kevin, if, there was a boat waiting at Dover and migrants come across, they're taken from the dinghy back onto the boat. You might wait for the remainder of the day to see if another boat arrives, so that people, and then the boat goes back to France and those people are escorted off. What would be literally the ramifications or the problem with that?
Well, let's start. We'd certainly expect a high level of violence on the boat itself. When there's attempts at returning people to France who don't want to go back, certainly that includes when we're doing it on planes and standard deportations. That means you need a lot of people to try and manage that situation. We had the boat. We're talking about 170 people. Clearly, 10 or 20 members of staff are not going to be able to deal with that if people are resisting going back. So let's start with that point. You then have when you arrive in France, if the French authorities have not given permission, the simple thing they can do is just impound the boat and the crew, probably impound the boat in this particular instance. So you start running out of naval vessels quite quickly if that is how France responded. Of course, there's other things they could do, such as, for example, suspend the agreement to have what we call juxtaposed border controls, which would mean that we'd end up having to do passport controls and other immigration controls on arrival in Dover, which presents more opportunities for people to enter the UK and claim asylum or do things on arrival, along with the sort of disruption that would cause to the port of Dover as well. So there are things that France could do in response. That said, though, if France took more the view Morocco or Turkey did, that actually it's in their interest, given the situation of Paracas. You know, you've heard the report there from Lee. You know, this isn't pain-free for French civilians living near the coast. They've got criminal gangs operating. There's constant violent crime going on linked to this crossing, along with the presence of very large numbers of people who are fundamentally sleeping rough and potentially stealing or doing criminal offences to fund their presence in France, that this would be in their interest to solve. But the core is France has always said no. So, yeah, we thought about this one many a time, but France always said no.
I remember having a long conversation with a former permanent secretary at the Home Office, somebody, you'll know who I'm talking about, and we were talking about all the stories and the way the media cover this, and he said to me, you think we don't talk about this? He said, we talk about nothing else. He said, as I'm sitting here, we were at some awards ceremony, he said, as I'm sitting here, there's hundreds of people in the Home Office right now trying to solve this problem. But when he put it like that, I understood what he was saying, and I can imagine the frustrating meetings you would have attended over that period of time as well, Kevin. But it does seem curious, doesn't it, that of all the amazing things we can do in the 21st century, the technology, the AI, the capability, the ingenuity, the engineering, the feats of just brilliance of the human condition and how we've advanced, we can't stop a rubber boat crossing the channel.
Well, we can solve this type of crisis, but you have to look at the countries that have solved something similar, basically Australia and the United States. And too often this debate has been dominated by slogans, and someone say, actually, I've got this really simple, really easy idea. If we just did that, it would solve this problem. Well, no, there is no simple single answer to it. If you look, though, let's say, for example, what the United States of America has done, they looked to disrupt illegal crossings, detain those who did so, process them quickly, and then remove them back to countries of origin. In particular, you saw the whole US government deployed, from the military assisting with flights, not just stood on the US-Mexican border, for example, but providing the logistics of getting planes back to particular countries. You saw the president there, Donald Trump, threaten one country that refused to take some of its citizens back with 50% tariffs on its main export to the United States. So trade policy being used, visa policy being used. There's a whole raft of things you can do. It's possible to solve this type of problem, but it's not going to be solved with slogans or with one easy answer. And I've noticed pretty much everyone I know who's involved in maritime security or operations. We're talking people here who've served our country, who are no shrinking violet, who have all said that reforms plan, yeah, great headline, but the very fact that the front cover of this document was a boat that hasn't been in the Royal Navy for 8 years showed the level of detail attached to it.
So you don't think that could ever work?
Only with French consent. And if you start getting into deploying armed force, deploying a massive aircraft carrier to try and deal with a small rubber boat, most people can probably work out what the problem is going to be there. It's not a particularly practical solution. Yes, returning people to France does make sense if you can if particularly there's a different French government next year, which I think what reform is gambling on. But to be doing the idea that we do armed assaults in French waters and just sail people back to the French coast and hope that that'll all go well is, I'm afraid, a recipe for disaster.
But we do, of course, just a final point, Kevin, we do pay the French a lot of money to stop this.
Yes, we do. We do fund gendarmes and others, but simply sadly there is no simple solution. Even Reform's own policies slightly contradict. They talk about building 24,000 detention spaces, processing, and then say, oh, actually, second thoughts, we can just put people in the channel. Also, of course, that doesn't deal with, for example, lorry arrivals. So we saw some footage this week of people jumping out a lorry in Essex. Well, quite clearly the Royal Navy isn't going to deal with that particularly effectively. So you can look at countries that have solved this problem: Australia, US, comprehensive strategy driven through with political leadership. That's what solves this. UK debate far too often. I'll put the last Conservative government in that post as well. I'm not just going to blame the current one or point finger at any opposition party. Stop the boat, smash the gangs, send the Navy in, safe and legal. Lots of slogans, not going to solve the issue.
On that point, Kevin, great to have you on. Thank you, sir. Kevin Foster, former immigration minister under the previous Conservative government. Let's get a word from Stuart in London on this. What have you got for us, Stuart? Morning.
Well, that guy's certainly very, very negative for what he was saying. He might as well just not even bother having any borders at all. Christ almighty, look at the mess that they made of it. But how many did they let in? 4.5 million, the Conservative government? Actually, we paid them over £1 billion, the French.
Yeah.
To stop them. So we take them back. We're doing their job for them. We should actually charge them for taking them back. And if we take them back, they realise there's no point in coming here. It will stop and it will clear them out of France. Another thing, dissension area, why don't they just shut their borders? These immigration problems stops overnight because they will not. They come through. Where they actually come from in the Middle East and other places, there are numerous safe countries all around them. Then they come all the way through Europe. So they probably pass through 30, 40 totally safe countries to get here. And they're getting here because of the benefits.
But you get all those benefits in most of those other countries, those European countries.
They don't get what France.
You get far more. You get a very generous system in Germany. You get pretty much the same in France and Spain. Again, pretty similar.
Well,
so there's another reason for coming here.
What do they want to come here for then?
I don't know. I don't purport to have the answer, but it just compounds the mystery to me. Any EU country will be offering something, in some cases a little bit more, but definitely in the same ballpark as what you'd physically get. You'll be accommodated. Some places let you work. You'll get around about 30, 40 quid a week. So to make your way, and OK, look, most of them, I get it, do stay in the EU. Some come here. Too many people. You've got 1,000 a day at the moment coming here, Stuart. It's mental.
I know. Well, in the Middle East, you try and enter one of their countries illegally, you are in serious trouble. They lock you up, some of them.
I'm sure if you tried to break into Saudi Arabia, you'd have your Charlies shot off by about 8 o'clock.
I would change the law. And I do a deal with El Salvador, got the best prison system in the world. They stop the crime, the most violent country in the world, the biggest murder rate in the world per capita, and the brilliant president stops. I do a deal with them. Do us by we pay for it. You build a prison and hold up to hold 100,000 and ship them all off there. You come here illegally, 25 years in prison in El Salvador. I guarantee you will stop. Overnight, they will stop coming. But Rwanda, it was slowing down. Send them out there. Honestly, what they've done out there is an absolute miracle. And people say, "Oh, what's against human rights?" I'm telling you what, he's got a 90% approval rating from the people of El Salvador because you can actually walk the streets now.
There it is, Stuart. Listen, it's up there with those suggestions on Australia that Australia did, and that completely stopped migration. Thank you to Stuart down in London. 0344 499 1000. Back to the issue, the curious question of toilets. Yes, it is very seriously on the agenda. Here's a voice note, comes from Steve. Morning, Steve.
Morning, Ian. Steve from Basildor. Great show as always. Apart from maybe the segment on what you keep in your fridge. Bit of a slow news day, I suspect. With regards to these toilets, though, the conversion, £10 million. Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't we just changing the sign on the bloody door? I mean, whether you're male, female or other, we all do the same business, don't we? It's just changing the sign on the door. How does that cost £10 million?
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 0344 499 1000. Paul in Manchester, we got into this discussion. It was one of those kind of silly season stories that's just cropped up in a couple of papers this morning about how 3 in 4 Brits are baffled about what you are meant to keep in a fridge. Eggs is the one that divides the room. Bread divides the room as well. Ketchup as well. I never thought of putting ketchup in the fridge. Paul in Manchester says, morning Ian, I keep ketchup in the cupboard. Yep, same here. It dispatches from the bottle easier when the ketchup is not chilled. So there you go. There is a logistical reason to do that. Ian and Charlie, Tim says, did you not know politicians have to be stored in the fridge to prevent rotting? It's a good point, actually. That chamber in the House of Commons is just one massive fridge. Who knew? Peter in Suffolk says, try marshmallows from the freezer. Is that not a little hard? Do they not? I assume they freeze. One would assume. Yes, that's the cookery section out the way. More on that to come. Let's get to some more serious news. This new guidance on single spaces comes into force. Today's the day that process begins. Women left to enforce single-sex rights, warns former EHRC chief. Tens of millions of pounds to be spent revamping apparently about 13,000 toilets and 5,000 changing rooms across Britain. Let's get a word from Fiona McAnina, who's Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters. Fiona, good morning to you. Long awaited, but it's happening.
Yes, and I think it's a bit of a myth to say that it's going to cost millions of pounds. You know, as your caller said, all that needs to happen is that signs that were changed without any consultation and without any fanfare from men and women to gender neutral need to be changed back.
Yes, I don't think many people actually built another toilet, did they?
Not that I know of. You know, if you go into some government departments, the Home Office, for example, you go through a door marked toilets and then you're faced with 2 doors, both marked toilets. It's so obvious that one of them was the men's and one of them was the ladies, and all they have to do is change that back. And then everyone knows their own sex. So this is the easiest thing in the world to police. You do it yourself. It always worked before.
Yeah, it's not that hard. And the bit I find confusing, Fiona, is where this subject kind of came from. And I keep talking about this. I've done this job for 30 years. Up until about 5 years ago, we never discussed this. There was no discussion. What's been, as far as you can ascertain, the sort of root of this evangelical march onto women's rights and spaces? This is my brief take on it, and tell me what you think. I don't think the average trans person, a man, biological man that wants to live his life as a woman, I have no problem with that at all. I doubt you do either. If somebody wants to live their life that way, that's fine. And vice versa, a woman becomes a man, etc. Call yourself whatever you like. Go mad. Stick a wig on. I don't care. But I do care about reality, and I do care about the basics of consideration. I don't think this argument has come from that group. I think it's come from sort of a gender madness, an evangelical politicisation of gender. Many of the people advocating with the strongest and the loudest voices on this are not even trans people themselves. They are sort of those that preach at the altar of identity politics. I think it's that group that fired this one up, because we never talked about this before.
Well, I mean, it's a it's been going on for quite a long time, and rather quietly, until there was some real overreach, which was around 2018, when there were demands for people to be allowed to change the sex on their birth certificate just on request. That's when we all realized how far this had gone. But it had already been in sport, for example. There were men and boys in women's and girls' sports categories, not so many. Now, what's happened since then has been there's been so much growth that many people are simply taking advantage of this. It's opportunistic. And of course it is, because, we have those single sex spaces for everyone's privacy, but some people, there are voyeurs, there are sexual fetishists, there are people who simply want to transgress and cross boundaries. And that's why this has got out of control. And just to say, that's why it's not just about toilets. There are far more sexual assaults, and there's voyeurism and so on in changing rooms when they are gender neutral than when they're male and female. So just going back to that common sense approach is going to benefit everyone.
Well, we've talked about this a little bit, and I think I know what your answer is to this, but you will be familiar with this argument. What happens then to someone who for 20 years has lived their life as a trans woman? They may have had surgery, they may have not. Let's assume, for the purposes of this conversation, they look every bit like a woman. It's not one of those kind of bad examples that we see all over social media of some bloke with missing teeth and a beard trying to say, my name's Miranda and I'm a woman. It's not that. Someone who's gone the whole hog, lived their life that way, never hurt anybody. That person has now got to revert to using the male toilets. Does that situation, do you have a different sympathy for that situation?
I think there are people whose life choices or whose medical processes have rendered them, ambiguous, as you say, sexually ambiguous. In most people, you can always tell what sex they were born. And actually, women are better at that than men are, maybe because we're a little more wary of the other sex. But if someone truly doesn't want to use the sex for their the facilities for their birth sex, then they should use a gender neutral or some alternative. They don't have the right to impose on other people, and they certainly don't and can't make the assumption that they can go into the opposite sex facility and pass freely and not cause any anxiety or discomfort, or just, for example, children will wonder why there's a man in the women's toilets. And don't forget, we're all very good at spotting this. So I think those people, and they're vanishingly rare in those people, but those people will have to think more carefully now if they don't want to go into the original sex toilet. But the rest of us shouldn't have to think about that. We've been given facilities for a reason.
That's fair.
Those are not for sharing.
And I would also say that it goes wider than just about changing rooms and toilets. I mean, obviously we can mention prisons and women's refuges and those kind of places which are really sensitive areas and have been exploited again by those same groups in this argument. But I just think that the basics of being a woman and the identity of a woman should not be up for mass discussion and huge debates around this. It's pretty simple stuff, yeah?
Yes, and it matters because we, as I say, that's how society operates. And you've mentioned a couple of more important examples: prisons, domestic violence shelters. People who've run those facilities in the women's sector, domestic violence and so on, and rape crisis, they know what those men are like, and they will tell you they've had men banging on the door. So we need kind of common sense.
Indeed we do, and you bring it in bucket loads, which is always great to have you on, Fiona. Thank you. Fiona McAnina, who is director of the campaigns at Sex Matters. You're listening to Talk. Let's get the news now. It's 8 o'clock.
It is therefore my honour to declare that the duly elected leader of the Labour Party is Andy Burnham.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. I believe in all of you, and I am confident we can do it. Thank you very much. I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
This man has no mandate whatsoever. He didn't stand on the 2024 general election manifesto. You cannot make the biggest change in British politics in 40 years without a mandate from the British people, and it will be only decent, right and proper to call a general election on that issue and to do it now.
Our fifth Prime Minister in 4 years. Blimey. And, well, look, we want him to succeed. But will this one be any different? Andy Burnham, the new head honcho, the speed this all happened, I know this is a well-trodden debate already, is actually breathtaking. 1 minute he was Mayor of Greater Manchester. What, a month and a bit ago, he wasn't even an MP. The next, he's holding keys to number 10, without the country ever really having a chance to scrutinise him in a prospective prime ministerial, nothing at all. We really know very little.
I think Burnham has to walk a fine line. I think that's probably what's going on, because if he were to sweep into Downing Street and say, I'm going to change everything, I'm going to fix everything, I'm going to do things completely differently to Starmer, then people would say, hold on, mate, we need a general election in that case, because no one voted for that. No one voted for you to be Prime Minister. You weren't standing in the 2024 general election. We've never seen your manifesto. Who the hell are you? That's what people would be asking.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome back. It is Talk Breakfast. It's Collins in for Kyle for the next couple of weeks. Monday, Wednesday even, the 5th of August. That's what you're looking at. We're midsummer. The weather's still pretty good in most parts of the country, and we're absolutely rammed to the rafters at this end with all sorts of topics and debating points, from the very light-hearted and almost irrelevant, but rather amusing, to the slightly more serious stuff. Coming up on the programme, this isn't leaving the news agenda, this one, by the way, prison places. We've got 87,000 people in jail. It's predicted to get to about 100,000 over the next few years. It's a really simple question. Who do we release, and where do those people go? Not everybody, this is apparently one of the other problems, has got somewhere to go when they leave jail. You haven't got a bed to go in, there's a problem. We learned today that 10,000 domestic abusers are also due for release. How is that okay? Elsewhere, today is the day where they begin the process of making sure that public toilets and changing rooms are based on biological sex. Tens of millions of pounds, they tell us, can't work out how, is going to be spent on revamping 13,000 toilets and 5,000 changing rooms across Britain. Details to come. Also, Labour plans to give 16-year-olds the vote could result in a surge in pro-Gaza candidates standing at the next election, according to one report. Now, of course, some of those candidates did have a bit of success at the last general election. I often wonder if we should consider raising the age that you vote, not lowering it. I reckon we should start at about 40. Would we get a better democracy if we did? And on a more accessible note, what are the do's and don'ts of what you're meant to keep in a fridge? Yeah, 3 in 4 of us are apparently baffled by this question. Does bread belong in the fridge? Where do you put tomatoes, for example? And what about eggs? There's the big one. Is it a yes or a no? Apparently this one's dividing the nation. Details to come. Everything you need to know. All the breaking news. 0344 499 1000. On that last point, here's a voice note from Joe. Morning, Joe.
Ian, bananas. Listen, don't put them in the fridge. Slice them so they're about 5 to 10 centimetres thick. Stick them on a plate. Chuck them in the freezer. Different. I tell you what, that's a game changer. They are absolutely delicious. Turn into like a frozen, creamy banana yoghurt. Trust me on that. You won't regret it. Anyway, good show.
So that would be like a banana lozenge you'd be eating, wouldn't it? Rather than an actual banana. But apparently, according to Joe, it works. And Pumpkin says, I've just read my box. It's the egg box. It says store in the fridge for eggs. If few people have mentioned that. What's that all about? 0344 499 1000. Let's speak with Dan Hodges, commentator at The Mail on Sunday, regular with us on the programme. Morning to you, Dan. Can I just start to get your view on Andy Burnham going on holiday? I mean, there's always a story when a Prime Minister goes on holiday. Almost the same story comes up. Should they be going on holiday? Well, yeah, they're allowed to have a holiday. Then there's the whole thing, if they're on holiday and there's a bit of a crisis, how bad does the crisis have to get if they come back from their holiday? There's all of those questions. I think the thing around Andy Burnham is that, of course, he's only been there 2 weeks. That's what sort of marks this one out as a bit of a different debate. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. I was surprised that he just opted to go on holiday so soon after he's taken over. Not, and I'm not necessarily being critical of him. It's just, obviously, as we know, Andy Burnham, as with all politicians, has obviously must have thought of, dreamt of, envisaged in his mind's eye the day he became Prime Minister and the day he walked through number 10. And having reached, that goal of a lifetime, to then decide to depart 2 weeks later, I have found surprising. Now, I've got to be honest, I haven't spoken to his people about it. I don't know if there were any sort of personal reasons why he needed to go away now. It may be that because of issues that are coming up or perceived to be coming up on the political agenda in the weeks ahead, this was basically the best window for him. But no, I mean, I was surprised, but I've seen some people saying, it shows he's going to be a part-time Prime Minister and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I remember when we had the same thing with Keir Starmer when he wasn't going to work Friday evenings or whatever. So I'm not going to criticise him, but no, I was surprised, but, He's going to need the holiday because he's got a lot of issues that he's going to be facing when he comes back.
Well, he really has, and he's sort of tinkered around the edges with some sort of headline-grabbing initiatives about energy bills and the buses and the like, and that's maybe a positive. Every little helps, to coin that phrase, etc. And he likes a TikTok video. We know that much, although I think they're wearing a little bit thin. What's your assessment so far? He's only been in the job a few weeks. Your thoughts?
I think he's done well, but as I said, he's only been 2 weeks. I mean, I think the thing he's done effectively is he's kind of introduced himself to the British people more or less for the first time. I think people are, tentatively pleased with what they've seen. I think he's obviously, the thing that stood out for me is he's just so streets ahead in terms of a personal communicator from what we were getting with Keir Starmer. I've liked the focus of his priorities. He's had a very tight focus on, I'm going to address the priorities of ordinary working people, which is, I think, what we need. But obviously, as you and others have pointed out, up until this point, we're still very, very short on detail. And, he basically conceded, you'll get my sort of political master plan in a few weeks, if not a month or so's time, and obviously that will be the key. I mean, there are so many major issues. He's identified some. There are others sitting in the background that he's going to need to grip. And despite the sort of the Burnham bounce, which I actually think is partly a Burnham bounce and partly a sort of a thank God Keir Starmer's gone bounce, and also somehow a bit also linked to the problems Reform are having. So there is that, but all the big fundamental issues that were confronting the country remain, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he gets to grips with them.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at some of the polling. I know a lot of people talking about the fact that, for many people, Andy Burnham, I never quite got the Andy Burnham thing, by the way, Dan, in terms of, if this whole story hadn't happened and he hadn't left the job as mayor and stood in Makerfield, if you and I had had a discussion on this programme about, great political heavyweights over the last 20 years, I think we could have sat here for half an hour. I don't think either of us would have mentioned Andy Burnham.
No, I mean, that was, in a sense, people forget that, I was saying this the other day, just before the local elections, the settled political narrative was Keir Starmer was safe. You know, I remember the narrative was Andy Burnham does not have a path back to Westminster. Significant losses for Labour in the local elections were already priced in. Keir Starmer, I remember talking about it on this programme, Keir Starmer, we were told, had skillfully manipulated the parliamentary timetable so that we would enter the parliamentary recess very soon after, so soon after he announced a new King's Speech and unveiled a new King's Speech, that the rebels would not have time to move against him. And in that sense, it's not just that Andy Burnham, you know, wasn't sort of high on the pecking order of sort of previous prime ministers. He was widely perceived as someone who didn't really have a realistic chance of getting in at all. So, you know, again, it shows how quickly politics moves. The reality is we'll only be able to judge Andy Burnham in 3, 4, 5 years, 5 years time, assuming he doesn't have a sort of a Liz Truss style implosion. But you know, he could surprise people. You know, he could surprise people. I mean, the one thing I would say about him, it goes back to what I was saying before. I think he does look and sound different. You know, he has managed to come across. I know some people are going, "Oh God, Northern Andy and the Northern shtick and whatever," and you know, number 10 of the North. But I think he has successfully sort of presented himself as a politician who is not one of the identikit sort of SW1 sort of regulars, if you like. And I think that is, you know, in the current political environment, that is a significant achievement. But as I said, it's so early. It's much too early to make any definitive decisions.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I mentioned the being able to note, you know, political heavyweights over the last few years is because for many, Andy Burnham would have been anonymous. He didn't really exist in the minds of many people. So there's lots of people out there, lots of voters who are seeing this bloke for the very first time. And of course, the biggest thing he's got is that he's not Keir Starmer.
Yeah, I mean, that is the big thing. And I think, you know, you showed, I mean, the poll that you put up there is a little bit misleading because it's just one poll from yesterday. The reality is, if you look across the polling averages, Labour are now marginally ahead, and there has been a bounce. But as I've said previously about polls, the polls, in my view, were always so distorted by the Starmer factor because he was so intensely disliked across the political spectrum. It's very difficult to get a handle on what sort of the political fundamentals are, and obviously in the weeks ahead, we're gonna get a much clearer picture of what the political landscape actually is. I mean, just to repeat, you know, people talk about the Burnham bounce. I think that's too simplistic. I think, obviously, as I said, there has been, you know, I think people quite like what they've seen so far. That's part of it. I think the other issue, a significant part of the issue, as I said, is, you know, just relief that Keir Starmer's gone. A third element is the ongoing problems with reform that are obviously, you know, well documented. So what is sort of easily sort of described as the Burnham bounce, I think is the product of a number of factors. I mean, there's another issue, which is, you know, Kemi Badenoch is slowly but surely transforming certainly her personal approval ratings and gradually starting to sort of drag her party up from the sort of the depths of the election. So you've got all these different things sort of cutting across each other. And it's only when we get back to the proper politics, we see Andy Burnham, he has his first couple of PMQs, he does actually start to set out his agenda. He does sort of have to start to grips with his first political crises, both domestic and international. It's only then that we'll start to get a proper picture.
It does seem bizarre, doesn't it? I know this is all about the timing, but we have a Prime Minister who's never once addressed the House of Commons as the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, obviously, you know, we were talking about him going on holiday. I mean, that's partially a product of the fact that he's happened to take over in the middle of summer, you know, just at the start of the parliamentary recess. I mean, I think the other thing, you know, been positive. I mean, there is another reality here, which is, and Andy Burnham and his team have actually done very well to mask this. But behind the scenes, within Downing Street, across government, if you speak to people privately, there's quite a bit of chaos going on at the moment, because the reality is Andy Burnham and his team wanted and expected and frankly needed a longer period of transition from the Starmer administration, because as he said, he'd only been, I mean, the gap between him being elected a member of parliament and becoming prime minister, I mean, it must be the shortest in British political history.
I would have thought so.
And so they were, frankly, they're not ready yet. You know, they need space and they need time to just put the basic fundamentals in place in terms of their agenda, in terms of the grid, in terms of their staffing. And that's going to take a few more weeks, if not a couple of months. And as I said, only then, when those sort of basic building blocks are in place, we'll be able to judge if Andy Burnham's going to be a success or not.
Indeed. One area that he's going to grapple, and obviously, you know, the brutality and the reality of taking over as Prime Minister is that all those issues and problems that were once somebody else's become yours immediately. You have to own them, you have to do something with them. The early prison release story was a headache for Keir Starmer. Now it's a headache for Andy Burnham. He was quite astute out the traps early doors on this, saying, right, we're going to pause this. That's great. And yes, they've made some clarifications, but it's still going to leave people like the killers of PC Harper are still on the list for early release. I noticed the front page of The Sun, cops vow legal fight to block the early release of PC Harper's killers. And we've also got stories of 10,000 domestic abusers being released from jail. Look, I know it's never going to be easy, and who do you pick and who do you select for early release, but this one could cause him a problem.
Yeah, it could do. I mean, there's a number of areas on this. I mean, firstly, it has to be said, this isn't just a problem that he inherited. This is a problem Keir Starmer inherited from the Tories. And actually, it's quite interesting. If I was speaking to a couple of people I know who worked for the last government, and they were completely honest. One of the reasons Rishi Sunak called the election as early as he did, and surprised some people by calling the election as early as he did, is because he knew full well the prisons crisis was coming down the track. And so he just couldn't afford to not call it before that hit. They knew that was coming. So this is to an extent a Tory crisis as much as it's a Labour crisis. In fact, more than it's a Labour crisis. That's the reality.
Yeah.
I think the other interesting thing, though, is you just put your finger on it. Andy Burnham has acted and has stepped in and said, to an extent, there are certain categories of criminals that are not going to be released under this scheme. I think there's a little bit of confusion about what it is. My understanding is quite serious sexual offenders, groomers, etc. Now, again, that just links back to one of the problems that I think there was with Keir Starmer and his administration. Why the hell, given quite clearly he had the power to do that, why didn't Keir Starmer just step in and say, look, these are very, very bad people. Yep. They are going to be excluded. I mean, just on a political level, I don't understand that. As you said, though, there's another element of this is I do not understand how it is that, as you say, the people like the scumbags, frankly, I'm not going to mince my words, who were the killers of PC Harper, how they are being released and how it is not, how no one is capable of looking throughout the breadth and depth of the prison system, the very large numbers of people within the system, that there aren't two individuals within the system who could be who deserve or could be safely released before them. And I think this is one of the things that I think frustrates people. I think most reasonable people accept there are issues in relation to the prison system. They accept the overcrowding issues. They accept the pressures on funding. Why is it beyond the wit of sensible people to say, right, we are going to have some discretion in terms of who we release as part of this? If you can actually have discretion in relation to political discretion in relation to the different categories of offender you release, why not have some discretion within categories? There are different categories of manslaughter, quite clearly. There are different categories of offence. Why not allow some discretion? I mean, my understanding was always the Home Secretary traditionally had a degree of discretion in terms of release of certain categories of criminals. I don't understand why that is not being done in in this specific case.
Yeah, well, I guess when you're dealing with the might of the civil service and the amount of meetings, that maybe it will come down to that. But, you know, nothing happens without, you know, about 100 meetings taking place, of which I'm sure most you could do in about 2 before any decision is made. And it could just be that. We will wait and see. Dan, thank you. Great to have you on with us as ever. Dan Hodges, columnist at The Mail on Sunday. Thank you to him. Let's get to work with Katie Lamb, MP, Conservative MP for the Weald of Kent. Katie, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Nice to have you with us. A word on this then, prisons. Dan Hodges just said there that, you know, this was a problem that Andy Burnham's inherited from Keir Starmer, and then also alluded to the fact that Keir Starmer inherited this from the Conservatives. So, I mean, I don't know where or if we're still in the territory of finger-pointing here. The one thing we all agree on is this thing needs to be solved.
Absolutely. These people are dangerous. They should not be out on the street. They should be in prison. And releasing them early from prison is bad for everybody, is terrible for the public, and is unbelievably upsetting for victims, in some cases for survivors, and in some cases, like with the awful killing of PC Andrew Harper, for the families of people who've been killed. I mean, the fact that killers are not excluded from this early release scheme, I think is completely inexplicable and indefensible.
Do you welcome Mr. Burnham's initial comments on pausing this early release scheme?
It's in the right direction, but the extremity of it is still, I think, remarkable and, as I say, dangerous for the public. And the fact that there are still entire categories of people, as you mentioned, very large numbers of people who've committed the most appalling domestic abuse, killers and child sex offenders, not all of which have been excluded from the terms. I think that there is a lot still, unfortunately, to be very worried about.
In terms of where it goes next, Mr. Burnham's on holiday, of course, at the moment. I mean, is that OK? Is grabbing a few rays before the what's it hits the fan?
Well, he has only just become the Prime Minister, so I'm not sure exactly what it is he is taking a holiday from, given that he's only been there for a couple of weeks, hasn't yet come to Parliament, hasn't yet stood up to any scrutiny whatsoever in his role. So whilst, you know, perhaps all of us maybe need a break from time to time, he has only just started this job, and I am surprised that he thinks that that is the right time to already take a break from it.
The other big issue that's, of course, dominating and dominates on a daily basis, Katie, is that of migrants crossing the Channel. We've had, 2,000 since Andy Burnham became Prime Minister. He's citing this as some sort of success, which is a little curious to use the word 2,000 people crossing the Channel in the same sentence as success. But he's alluding to the wider picture that under Labour, these are broadly his words, the schemes they put in place with France is working.
I think that that is completely delusional. He's also said, Andy Burnham, that he doesn't want to, quote, play politics with this issue. But that is exactly what he's doing. He's making political decisions. He refuses to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, which would make it much more possible for us to defend our border. That is a political decision. The government is adding more routes for people to come here. That is a political decision. The number of people streaming across the Channel in small boats remains completely unacceptably high. And for Andy Burnham to paint this as a victory, I think is insulting.
It's a very difficult territory for this, isn't it? We talk to Reform UK often. We spoke to Lee Anderson, a fellow member of Parliament, a little earlier. He's over there in northern France at the moment. Chris Philp for the Conservatives has been over there in France as well, paddling in the water, challenging the gendarmes, asking all the right questions. It's all very well. Can the Conservatives ever seriously usurp their previous, to coin a policing phrase, on this? Because every time it comes up, we spoke to a former immigration minister for the Conservatives a little earlier as well. Every time it comes up, the resounding, conclusive response from our listeners is, why would we trust the Conservatives on this? You presided over this. It started under you. Boris Johnson massively responsible. You did nothing to stop the boats. Why would anyone, if they're looking at this to be the pivotal point that they vote on at the next election, why would they look at the Conservatives as opposed to Reform UK, who've been arguing almost exclusively this for years?
Well, I've only been a member of Parliament since 2024, but one of the reasons that I joined Parliament was because I felt very, very strongly and passionately about this issue. And what I observed from the Conservative Party is that it is a changed outfit. I think Kemi has transformed the party, and I think it's very important that we understand exactly why these things happened in the past. There is no question that the last Conservative government got a lot wrong on migration, that it made a lot of mistakes, and the party is very honest about that, and has to be in order to move forward. But I think as long as we can say and keep saying and be consistent in, and the public can believe and can trust us, that the party has changed, that we will never, ever make mistakes like that again, that we won't ever do that to the public again, then I think that actually the Conservatives who really do understand what went wrong in the past are exactly the right people to fix this in the future. But there's no question that we have to approach this issue with honesty about that and humility.
On that point, Katie, thank you for your time. Have a great day. Katie Lamb, MP, Conservative for Weald of Kent. Thank you to her. The point she made there at the end, well, we know where the bear traps are because we stood on all of them ourselves, and we won't make those mistakes again. Do you trust the Tories on immigration? Now, let's go to Mary in Cyprus. Back to that delicate issue of toilets, Mary. Morning to you.
Hello, good morning, Ian. Well, I just wanted to say that I used to work in a place before, and in the gents' toilets, there used to be a notice: "Gentlemen, our aim is to please. Will gentlemen please aim?"
Yes.
Now, if we're going to have single toilets, I think that should be put up in every one, because the thought of going into a single toilet after men have been in there absolutely frightens me to death.
So it's a fair point. I mean, I don't know what experience you have of gents' toilets, but the word on the street seems to be, Mary, that the ladies are in better condition than the men's. Is that a stereotype? Is that fair?
I think it probably is fair, yes. Yes, because women probably clear up a mess at home as well.
Yeah, I think it probably is. I mean, that sort of stereotype does still prevail in many places. Mary, thank you for that. Enjoy the rest of your day in lovely Cyprus. Pat is over here in Bangor. Back to immigration. Pat, what have you got for us? Morning.
Well, it's that old question that many children drive their parents insane with, and teachers. Why? Why do we do this? I spoke to the person who took my call earlier, saying it just goes on, and we all stand in line saying, "Oh, why? Oh dear, they've done it again," and it goes on, and the end result seems to be, when you think about it, people do things for a certain reason. I want to know why they're doing it, who's paying them. We're paying the French. Let's have that money, and if somebody's paying them, let's have more money and actually rebuild our country, because we can't do it without some influx. We can't do it when people are not working. We can't do it when we don't have enough housing. People are under stress. They're being told continually, you're at the back of the queue. We used to be told years ago that we're a nation of shopkeepers and queuers. We will stand there until they say, no, there's no bread left, sorry, come again tomorrow. And it's been done in certain times of war, certain times of distress, certain times of illness, and people will wait. They wait to be told they can go and see a doctor. Mm-hmm. They wait, and we continue waiting. We want some answers. We want real answers, not platitudes, not people who are hoping to further their own professional career.
I hear you. We do need answers. And again, I come back to that phrase I keep using, it can't be beyond the wit of mankind, but it seems at the moment this one is. Pat, thank you for that. 0344 499 1000. You're listening to Talk Breakfast. It's Collins in for Kyle for the next couple of weeks. The time now, 8:30.
coalitions, i.e. cooperations in government, they achieve absolutely nothing. There is one party that has a real chance of winning a majority on the right in this country. We're going to fight to win. And we'd encourage everybody who shares the values that I talked about, who want mass deportations, who want a secure border, who want law and order, who want British people to come first, to get behind reform. But having said that, as Nigel said, of course we're willing to engage and talk to people from other parties, and that would include Rupert, yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome back. Just gone 8:30. It is Talk Breakfast. Loads to get through. As long as I've been doing this job, this basic fact has never changed. An irredeemable reality. You can talk about all the big stuff, the big news stories of the day, stuff that impacts families, stuff that impacts politics and a nation. You throw in one light-hearted story, and that's the one that's going to get every text and email and message absolutely going nuts. And you know it's the silly season when newspapers start covering stories like Brits don't know what to put in a fridge or what not to put in a fridge. We mentioned this at 6 o'clock this morning. 2.5 hours later, we are rammed with messages on this one. There's loads. There's nothing wrong with a bit of light, by the way. Martin says, I used to work in a bakery. We were told that bread shouldn't be kept in a fridge as it makes it go stale, possibly last longer, but I would imagine it dries out and turns into wood. Slightly overripe bananas peeled, wrapped in a bag in the freezer. It's like banana ice cream, which is great unless you want to take a banana to work, of course. And then you are in a tricky situation. Steve says, morning, I've always used the same rule of thumb. If the supermarket stores an item on a shelf, then so do I. If it's in a chiller, then it goes in the fridge. You'd hope that supermarkets know what they're doing. You would. You don't buy eggs in a freezer, in a fridge in a supermarket. You don't buy bananas in a fridge in a supermarket. But then what about the issue of things lasting longer once they've been opened? That seems to have divided the room as well. And this one from Nicola in Norfolk, who says, fridge no-nos, ketchup, eggs, bananas, onions, potatoes and bread. No to all of those. Although we have been informed that on the side of an egg box, it does say store in fridge. Apparently. I've not seen any visual evidence, just lots of people getting in touch making that same point. Let's move back to more serious matters, and in particular, there it is on the front of the Sun this morning. It's their main headline. If you haven't seen this, see you in court, Prime Minister. This is cops vowing a legal fight to block the early release of the killers of PC Andrew Harper, who remains still on the list of potentially being released early. So they haven't come under the category that at the moment has said, OK, these people will never be released, rapists, murderers. But those that have committed domestic abuse, which is a horrendous crime and still doesn't, I don't think, gets the kind of exposure that it should do. It's got better, but it's not great. Those people can still be released. The killers of Andrew Harper, it was a manslaughter sentence, of course, they went to jail for. But if you, and I won't go over the details of Andrew's death, but it was horrific in the extreme. And officers and emergency services that had to deal with that, I would imagine, were left pretty traumatised for the remainder of their careers. Let's get a word with Eileen O'Connor, who's the chair of the Thames Valley Police Federation. Eileen, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I mean, the police have enough to, you know, keep bubbling away in the headlines and the politics and the difficulties and the value that is not given to police where it should be. I mean, it's an ongoing story for many, many ways. You know that at the Federation. It's what you spend your days dealing with. And then you see a headline such as this, and we know that new legislation fairly recently came into force, which the Federation were instrumental in making a specific offence of assaults on police officers and other emergency workers. So that's cast in stone. And yet, despite that, here we have a situation in the story of Andrew Harper's killers where that recognition of emergency workers, and in this case a police officer, seems to have gone out of the window.
Yeah, so we have the new legislation around assault on emergency worker, but we also have the new legislation, Harper's Law, that was a law passed in Andrew's name back in 2022, that makes if the killing of an emergency worker, you will get a mandatory life sentence. But that law cannot be enacted retrospectively for these two individuals that are subject to the early release, of course. So in terms of where the law is now to protect us and protect police officers up and down the country, as far as I can see, there is a kind of carte blanche. What is the deterrent for people who kill police officers now, when we have this example of the early release of these two of the three individuals that killed Andrew Harper?
And this is early release upon early release, isn't it? Because you don't serve your full sentence, and this is an early release on top of that these people are experiencing to their benefit and to the detriment, I think, in cases such as this, to wider society. It was manslaughter and not murder. That doesn't make it any less horrific in terms of what happened to Andrew. As I mentioned, we don't need to go over the details. It was as barbaric as one could possibly imagine. The trauma from those officers that attended this, of one of their colleagues, which is traumatic anyway, and in these particular circumstances, incredibly so. Lissy, his wife, of course, suffering this, and the remainder of his family. You would think, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, Eileen, Andy Burnham has paused this early release scheme, and then they've started to categorise it down to who gets to be released, who doesn't. Surely a Home Secretary or a Prime Minister has the power to say, look, it's not you're in that category or that category. We can take big cases, so it's not you're a shoplifter, you're a house burglar. Certain categories can be looked at individually, I would have thought. And I can't imagine there's anyone in the land that would think a case such as this would qualify you for early release. And part of that thinking of early release, of course, is that you are as certain as somebody can be that you're no longer a danger to the public. I would find that a curious assessment to make in a case such as this.
And that's the really perverse thing about this, Ian. I get there has to be a line in the sand drawn around the category of people to be released from prisons early. I get that. But you cannot say in one hand, we are going to keep paedophiles, members of child grooming gangs, those really heinous, horrendous crimes that are committed against people. We're going to keep them behind lock and key for the duration of their sentence, but we're going to let out killers of police officers. And that, for me, is what the message is currently, the position of the government, and that's currently what they're saying. And in my eyes, and in the eyes of my members in Thames Valley, and probably up and down the country, that's unacceptable and doesn't give us any trust and confidence that the government have our backing.
And I think you're absolutely right. I do wonder, and this may be just a point to finish on, Eileen, I sense there could be a rethink on this. What does your gut tell you?
My gut right now tells me, Ian, my gut is churning daily at the prospects of these individuals, their imminent release. That's the first point. I hope there is a U-turn. I pray there is a U-turn. I am doing everything in my power to make that happen. And the headline in that paper around "We will take you to court." We're exploring a JR process through the National Federation. There's talks going on today, and I will put everything that I have in my power, and I don't have a lot of power, I have to say. I'm just a chair, I'm just a COB, I'm a chair of a local federation. But I will throw everything in my power against this to make sure that they have really seriously understood the implications of releasing these two individuals early.
So if there was a legal mechanism that could get the Prime Minister or the government, in this case, into a courtroom, you will explore that and go for it?
Wholeheartedly. That's what my members expect. That's what every single police officer in the country would expect of us, of their national federation. They would expect us to be, and we are behind it. The National Federation are as much behind this as what we are as a local branch, or every branch up in the country. And that's what surely that's what the public would expect. That's what we're doing. And if there is a challenge there, then I'll be front and centre at it.
Yeah, well, I wish you loads of luck with it, Eileen, and I know you have the support of pretty much every decent man and woman in this country as well. Thank you. Eileen O'Connor is the chair of Thames Valley Police Federation, exploring the legal possibility of literally dragging the government into court to stop this happening. And it needs to be done for a number of reasons. There's the basic injustice of early release, which you could apply across the board, but obviously it gets more pronounced when you get into really serious offences. And then you get into the emergency worker, copper doing his job, and the barbaric nature of poor Andrew's end days, end moments of his life. All of that should feed into a common sense decision. These people are not coming out early. End of. We want common sense. We're asking for common sense. We don't get it across the channel. We don't get it in many areas of life. Could this be one scintilla of hope where our government does what most people want them to do? Let's hope so. 0344 499 1000. Back with more from you in a couple of moments' time. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Quick swig of coffee. We're back with it. 8:45 on Talk Breakfast. Is Ian Collins in for Jeremy Kyle. Here for the rest of this week and next week on Talk Breakfast. So much to get through here this morning. We are, of course, talking about that ruling which comes into place. The process begins today. Back to basics. There's a men's loo, there's a women's loo. Anything in between is a load of old nonsense. We're back to safe spaces. We should be. Baroness Sharon Davis joins us, Olympic medalist, of course, in the swimming world and women's rights campaigner. Always good to see you, Sharon. Morning to you.
Good morning, Ian. You've got a busy day, haven't you?
I'll tell you what, it's a bit non-stop. I was just thinking before you came on, Well, when you were winning gold medals and swimming like Billy-O and representing this country and doing a brilliant job, and you became a sort of national treasure in those times, did it ever cross your mind? You know, people often say to athletes, you know, what you might be doing in a few years' time, and sporting careers can go a number of ways, of course, because naturally they have in the grander scale, a shelf life, because not everybody stays at the same level of fitness, and we all get a bit older. So you think about what I might be doing in years to come. Did it ever occur to you, be talking to people like me, and we get to know each other a little bit over the time, about women's toilets?
No. I mean, in a word, no. And even more so, I never in a million years thought I'd have to defend trying to stop men from being able to compete in women's competitions. Yeah. I mean, it's just a ludicrous position to be actually even considering that we're just going to go, because someone says they feel like something, yes, we're just going to ignore reality and biology altogether, and women's rights and opportunities just don't matter. And I thought we'd won those battles, you know, a long time ago. I often talk about the fact my mum wasn't allowed to be on her first mortgage of her first house, you know, and it's like those fights that we've had, and females before us have had these incredible fights that they've won, and here we are pretending that reality doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was just going to say, on that point, it's interesting, isn't it? Because back in, I mean, you saw injustice in the world of athletics and in the world of swimming, but that was down to really the use of drugs and, you know, Russian athletes and the horrendous things that happened back then. You know, people losing placings and goodness knows what. But even then, even that, with all of that going on, that didn't throw up this debate, did it? Nobody then said, oh, well, yeah, but what about there's another angle to this story? You know, you've got young girls who are about 15 who are turning up to lane 1 in the pool, looking more like Jeff Capes than Jemima Smith. That didn't prompt this debate, because no one thought something as crazy as this debate could ever happen.
No, we really genuinely did not think we'd ever be here. And I suppose it's probably the biggest reason I do speak out. You know, I was able to, I wasn't a competing athlete. I didn't have sort of restrictions on what I could and couldn't say. I paid most of my bills, not all of them. And so I thought, I just can't watch this happen again. You know, a whole generation of young girls lost out to East Germans. And the thing is, everybody knew, Ian, everybody knew then, just like they know now, that it is unfair and it was wrong. And nothing was done for such a long time. 20 years this went on for, you know, and I had friends that came fourth behind 3 East Germans who would have been Olympic champions. Their whole lives would have been different. Those things were stolen from them. And I just could not sit and watch another generation of young girls have their opportunities stolen when we've worked so hard to get them. When I did my first Olympic Games, way back in 1976, when we had black and white TV, there were 4 men to every 1 woman at the Olympic Games. You know, so we've trawled all of these things to be able to get these opportunities, and we still only get a tiny percentage of the money that's in sport. 5% goes to female athletes of all the money that's in sport. So we still have a long way to go. But to turn around and then say that we're not even entitled to fair reality-based sex categories is just extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. You just reminded me of 2012 then for a moment, because 2012 will, for the entirety of my life, I'm sure you feel the same with it. What a lovely time that was. Remember when everything was badged? It was. I have a shiver thinking about how much we enjoyed it. It brought sports to people who'd never considered.
Weren't we cohesive as a country?
Oh, it was absolutely amazing. You know, coming out of a railway station, the big signs were up there. I can see the colours and the signage. It was great. We were all together and we did so well. We did so well. We did well in swimming. We did well in cycling. We dominated in so many areas we'd never been able to before.
That magical track day. I was doing interviews in the pool and I could hear the noise next door. You know, it was brilliant.
Indeed. And I got to see some of it as well, which was fantastic. It was just glorious. And even then, and this seems like 2012 seems 5 minutes ago, frankly, we weren't, whether this debate was happening behind the scenes or it just hadn't gathered momentum, but I don't really recall discussing males in female sports in 2012.
No, it kind of crept up. I mean, what happened was that women were polled by the IOC at the end of the 1990s, so 1998, and over 80% said that they wanted to keep sex screening. But it was removed. So what the point of polling their female athletes was,
Yes.
I have no idea. And then they just brought in a load of activists and trans activists that were then, shipped into Lucerne to talk to the IOC. And against all the scientific evidence, they just turned around and said, well, unless you can prove that there's an advantage to being male, and you go, well, every single Olympic record ever, every single Olympic final, every single world, there's so much evidence it's untrue. But they just ignored it. And so instead of doing it the other way around and going, right, now prove to us there's no advantage, but meantime, we're going to protect female sport because of all these examples of why we know there's a biological difference, they just threw us under the bus all over again. And it's 10 years to get that back. As we know, earlier this year, the IOC have now brought back sex screening. But it's been such a battle, and the names that people have been called and the fear that's been created has been extraordinary. People are petrified to speak out on this subject.
It was because it's got a sort of smack of an ism about it, isn't it? So people have sort of said, well, it's the equivalent of being homophobic or racist. And of course,
it's so not.
It's none of that stuff. I remember watching an interview with John McEnroe on an American breakfast show, and this subject had come up, and McEnroe said something like, and obviously there's exceptions to this, if me and you got in a pool, even now, you would, I would be sort of still paddling away at the shallow end by the time you'd done about 16 laps. So there's obvious things like that. But McEnroe made the point, it was something like, I can't remember what the stat was, but he said that if you took who could beat Serena Williams, that was it. And he said something like, the guy that is like 100th in the world, generally speaking, pro tennis player, would beat Serena Williams. And of course, they all had a meltdown on this American breakfast show because they'd all gone absolutely totemically woke and all the rest of it. And they went, you can't say that. He went, no, I'm just telling you a fact. I'm just giving you a fact. And it's just about basic strength, anatomy, biology, however you want to look at it. It's just a basic fact. You don't even need to be an athlete or a doctor to know this, Sharon.
I know. And it's also not safe, is it? If we are changing official records and putting a female on a birth certificate or a driving certificate, and that person's not a female, what happens if there's something, if they have an accident and they have to go into hospital? We need to know the medical truth. I also don't believe that lying to children that they can magically change their sex is a good thing. I mean, that child will always know. It's a pretense. So what we need to do is to find it acceptable for people that are feminine and masculine, whether that is as a male or as a female. And actually, I mean, it's almost the opposite of being homophobic, because the majority of these children who are identifying as trans are gay children. Are children that are going through a really difficult puberty, are unsure of their sexuality, sometimes even have homophobic parents that think this is a better option. So we're medicalising children that are vulnerable. A huge number of these kids are autistic as well. I mean, it's going to be a massive scandal. My mum died because of the blood scandal a few years ago. And, this will be just another humongous scandal. And the most injured will be children. And it's disgusting, really, what we're doing.
So today is, it's late coming. It's not the full picture yet, but today is a bit of a victory for common sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So this guidance has now been laid. I mean, of course, the law was always the law. The law never actually even changed, even last year. It was just clarified by the Supreme Court. So a lot of these companies and sports have changed their rules against the law, and all we're doing now is claiming it back again. So if you are a service provider and you call a changing room a female changing room, a woman's changing room, a girl's changing room, it's got to be sex-based, and that applies to sports. It applies to shortlists. So anything that's marked female, it's for females, and that's the way it should be. What we must do is find space for everybody. I've always said this. It's not like I want anyone banned from sport. I absolutely don't. I've fought all my life to keep people involved in sport.
Sure.
It's one of the things I talk about the most in Westminster, is trying to do prevention rather than cure and having fitter and healthier kids. So I want everyone to do sport. It's just finding the right place that's fair for everybody.
Absolutely bang on. Sharon, lovely to see you, and what a great day to speak. Sharon Davis, Baroness Sharon Davis, Olympic medalist, of course, swimmer, women's rights campaigner as well. It's 5 to 9. Let's get some sports news.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
And we're joined by Dan King, football correspondent over there at The Sun. Morning to you, Dan. And Infantino is not off the hooks, not off the news agenda either. He's still there. I can hardly believe he's still there, frankly.
Well, when you've got the prospect of trying to earn $30 million or pounds, whatever it was a year, I guess you do all you can to hang on.
And he was doing all right in the first place, right?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, I think his days must be numbered. I can't see how he can carry on, but it'll just depend on how a few of the key football federations around the world, whether his supporters in places like Qatar and Saudi Arabia will carry on supporting him or whether they won't. But I think in all likelihood he will go this week, I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, we've even got staff in Morocco now. I mean, as if they haven't got enough on their plate at the moment. So this is pretty much everyone. As you say, there's a few exceptions. I mean, I said at the beginning of the week, Dan, that I don't think he can last till the end of the week, and that's as much as I gave him. But he's still there at the moment. But what do you think? In reality, this can't carry on, can it?
No, I think when you've got the fact is, although even if Saudi Arabia and Qatar and other federations unite behind him, the fact is that the vast majority of FIFA's income comes from TV rights, and the markets which provide the money for the TV rights are mainly European. And if the European teams are serious about boycotting a World Cup, if Infantino stays in place, then there really is nowhere for him to go. I mean, his justification for this whole thing is that we make more money and therefore we distribute more money to all the federations around the world that need it. But if he stays and the European nations go ahead with their threat, then FIFA will be losing a huge amount of its income, and the whole reason for doing what he wanted to do will go out the window anyway.
I'm going to stand by it. He's gone by Friday. There you go. Heard it here first. Dan, great to have you on. Dan King, football correspondent with The Sun, here on Talk. News at 9, next.
My father was born here, my mother was born here, I was born here, I consider myself British. People with exactly the same credentials, but maybe their family came from the Caribbean or came from India, but they have lived here 2 or 3 generations. They shared language, values, beliefs, integrated, assimilated generations ago. Why is they having babies? Why is that a threat to this country?
So, Julia, you are here acting as a mouthpiece for the regime that currently governs this country.
Shut up, Charlie. You're embarrassing yourself.
What you're saying is exactly the same thing I've been hearing for my...
The Home Secretary has brought forward a very rigorous plan in relation to this, and let's remember, of course, the numbers can fluctuate, but overall boat crossings are down quite significantly year on year, so that does suggest that the plan is working.
We've just witnessed drone footage of the French authorities handing out life jackets to illegal immigrants and then waving them goodbye as they head on their way towards the UK. So the French are actively helping and facilitating illegal immigration. In addition to that, the French forces did nothing to stop that huge migrant dinghy. In fact, the dinghy came out, then it went back to the beach to pick up even more illegal immigrants and then departed for a second time. During all of that, the French did nothing. and they even handed out life jackets and waved goodbye as these illegal immigrants head towards the UK. I think that's terrible. I mean that anyone who did cross the channel and arrive in Dover could be immediately deported within around about a week.
Give that a second, he's just dragging a line by the look of it.
Is that a warning shot towards us? I don't know.
Well, I was trying to work out.
Okay. The French officers could clearly see we were conducting an interview on the back of the fishing boat. They sailed extremely close to us and started firing gunshots, 11 live rounds. We could see the bullets hitting the water behind our boat. They weren't firing before their approach. They weren't firing afterwards. There was no notification of any kind of training exercise. So it did seem to me to be an effort to intimidate us.
The thing that I find, and I should say alarm clock Brits find so frustrating, Chris, and this is why I wanted you on this morning. Yesterday, finally, the unelected Messiah of Manchester stood up and said to consummate fury from most of us that Labour's plan to stop dinghy migrants is working. This, Chris, despite the fact that 1,000 illegal migrants have still come into this country in the last 9 days since he became Prime Minister.
Je suis un député dans le Parlement du Royaume-Uni. Why have you allowed the migrants into the water? Why haven't you stopped them?
Our order is to let them go like that.
Your order is to let them go?
We just have to say to them, don't do that, it's dangerous.
So your orders are not to intervene?
We have to protect them.
Well, there's also protecting the border as well.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good morning, 3 minutes after 9 o'clock. It is Talk Breakfast. It's Ian Collins in for Jeremy Kyle for this week and next. Lots to get on with this morning. We have naturally been still reflecting on prison places. There is an alarming statistic. We've got 87,000 people in jail. That's predicted to get to about 100,000 in the next few years. That, with the current places available, is not sustainable. But who do we release? And where do they go? The people we don't release are the killers of PC Harper. There it is on the front page of The Sun this morning. See you in court, Prime Minister. One part of the Police Federation is looking at taking the government, Andy Burnham and all, into a courtroom and saying you cannot release these people. We also hear that 10,000 domestic abusers are also due for release as well. What has happened that we've got to this point in the 21st century where we're releasing violent offenders in this kind of way? I thought that was against the spirit of what was meant to be the case. Elsewhere, as you were hearing, we spoke with Sharon Davis just before the news. Today is the day where public toilets and changing rooms have to be based on biological sex. The process begins. Apparently, and I'm struggling with this one, tens of millions of pounds will need to be spent on revamping 13,000 toilets and 5,000 changing rooms across Britain so that they are compliant with the new guidelines on single-sex spaces. Surely in most cases that's just a case of changing the sign on the wall, you might have thought. And on a more accessible note, what are the do's and don'ts of what you're meant to keep in a fridge? We've discussed this incessantly since 6 a.m. this morning. Despite those big stories out there, this is the one that gathered some real momentum. Is it okay to put bread in a fridge? What about tomatoes? And eggs seems to be the great divider. Is that a big yes or a big no? I mean, it's a tricky one. 3 in 4 people don't know the rights and wrongs, the do's and don'ts of what you put in a fridge. Yes, it's the silly season, and there's a lot of these kind of stories out there at the moment. The response we've had has been absolutely huge on this one. Glenn in Leeds says, don't put potatoes in the fridge. The starch turns into usher. Usher or musher? I don't know which. As a result of all of this, we thought we would bring in our fridge correspondent, Layla Cunningham, who knows everything from a Zanussi to a hot point. And despite all the great politics that Layla does and her mayoral candidacy for London, it's really fridges she specialises in.
Very much so. You know, I take
You're
my
big
fridges
on
very,
the fridge.
very.
And you are, it's never, not a known fact, you won't mind me saying it, but you have a collection of fridges as well. You've collected them from the original ones up to modern day.
I do. I have a very keen interest in fridges. You know, they are actually, if you think about it, fundamental to our future. You know,
I think they are.
Without fridges, we cannot preserve food.
Without fridges, we're nothing.
We're nothing without fridges. And in terms of eggs, I have this debate a lot. My husband's American. In America, they require you to put eggs in the fridge.
They put anything in a fridge in America.
We don't do that here.
No. But they do sell fridges, as you know, as a collector of fridges, that we are, by the way, making this bit up. They do sell fridges with those little egg compartments in them. So what's that all about?
I never use them. Who takes the time to take the egg out of the box? And, I mean, maybe some people do. You know, my daughter's very organised like that. Perhaps she does.
Listen, in a busy house, as you well know as well, if we buy half a dozen eggs, they're gone in a day.
In a second.
Yes.
Also, because you've got one child who's like on an egg white, like protein.
Yeah.
So you'll have like 10 of them.
One likes boiled, one likes scrambled.
Yeah.
You know, you get into all of that territory.
That's Saturday morning for me, and it's just eggshells flying all over the place.
We can go through a dozen eggs within hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unheard.
It is the most complete nutritional food you can have.
Yeah, I was looking this up recently in terms of what's the best form of egg to have. And apparently, I think I'm right in saying it's boiled.
No, well, apparently...
oh, hello, we've got division in the room here.
Yep.
Cunningham's going rogue.
You should have the yolk kind of runny because you kill a lot of the nutrients when you cook it.
True, it's not, hard-boiled is not ideal, but does apparently... There are some benefits with the hard-boiled that you don't get with the soft.
But perhaps, I mean, for instance, my ex-husband's French, so my son takes about 8 minutes to do scrambled eggs. Very slow heat, and it's as if you put fresh cream in it, stirring it constantly for 8 minutes.
I'm quite slow on the egg.
Yeah, because then it's not dry.
It's not dry, and also when I fried it, this is because I grew up in a house with a mum who hated cooking and thought that the default way to cook anything was on the highest heat possible.
Yeah, so I'm a bit like your mum because I've got so many kids.
Yes.
And I've got one son who reckons he's a chef, and he goes, "Mum, can you just not do that?" I just you know, I would do exactly that.
The thing is, you see, my mum with an egg, when you're frying an egg and you've got that on a high temperature, you just get fat spews out on you and everything. It was like an assault course, walking past mum, frying an egg. So I've gone the complete opposite way. I put it on like number 3 or something.
Yeah,
I don't
like
care if that fried egg
yeah.
takes about 7 minutes either.
He's like that.
And that's a fried one. But it looks nice and white. There's no burnage on it.
No, it's true. When I do it, like all the white's a bit like...
Yeah.
I quite like it crisp and... It's like a war zone one. His is like all nicely presented. Even with his steak, you know, you have to take it out for 20 minutes, season it. You know, I'm just like high heat, bang, bang.
Bang, bang, done. I also have a little tiny egg pan as well for fried eggs.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Poached, I never managed to master poached.
Nobody can do poached eggs.
It's tough.
That is, I've tried every way.
That's restaurant. That's when you go to the restaurant.
Put it in cling film, stick it in a little tray, just drop it straight into boiling water. How can you do that? The minute you do that, it just goes all over the show.
I don't understand
carnage.
it. But I do love eggs and soldiers. Love.
I love eggs and soldiers.
Nothing quite like it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, as a full adult, if I'm on my own, I would still cut them up into
100%.
soldiers.
Yeah, I
Bit of salt on the egg, in you go for the dip.
Yeah, so good.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to say what I said to Nigel Evans. Layla Cunningham, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank
nice
you.
to see you. Keep in touch. Layla's back next week when we're talking about how to boil tomatoes. Actually, the real...
You have to boil them to remove the skin.
Do you?
Well, not boil them, but like
Are you doing
blanch
next week's
them.
feature already?
Yeah, but blanch them. You know, so some people don't like skin on their tomatoes. The
I've
French
never
are kind
boiled
of
a
picky.
tomato.
Sorry, not boiled, but you kind of put them in boiling water quickly and then the skin peels off.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what my son...
I've got a bit of... I don't know what the tomato equivalent is of racism, but I don't like or fat shaming. I don't like the big tomato. I like cherry tomatoes.
I agree. They're grainy, those big ones.
Yeah, they're surplus to requirements.
But then you've got those expensive beef tomatoes with all the wrinkles. Have you seen those?
They bother me.
Oh, those ones.
They bother me. They look a bit like a pepper, don't they?
They
More
do
than
a bit. They do a bit, but they are quite nice when they're deep red inside.
Just bring me. I'm into small things, you see. So, like with broccoli, for example, if you chop off a floret, you know, you go somewhere to a restaurant for a Sunday lunch, and they give you a massive clump of broccoli. I don't want to see that. I want it nicely sliced. So a floret will be sliced into about 16.
Oh wow. You could also sometimes I just if I want to slip it in, I'll shave just the top part and make it like sprinkles and put it into minced meat.
Oh, I see.
Right.
So you
when the kids
sprinkle.
were little, I would sprinkle cauliflower.
So they're getting a bit of their greens.
So they don't really know.
Listen, this is
Tricks of the trade.
This is what politics is all about,
Of course.
Layla. I said to you, didn't I, this morning, we come up with, you know, loads of subjects that are out there for talk. We are going to come on to the serious stuff. But the minute we raise... this is actually deadly serious. Yeah. The minute we raise something sort of vaguely light-hearted, it's the thing that gets the phones and the messages going absolutely mad. I've had so much advice on what to put or not put in a fridge this morning. It's unbelievable. It's everywhere. I keep looking. Look, Keith in Hertfordshire.
Do people put avocados in a fridge?
Yes, but
See,
I don't know if you're supposed to.
Yeah.
And what's the key? Here's a great one. Avocado, right? Cut one in half. You only want half of it. What do you do with the other half?
So annoying.
They never stay.
It's so... Well...
The very next day, they're going a little bit kind of black.
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I'm kind of surprised. I'm like, what kind of avocado is this? So my mother-in-law always says that if you leave the stone in, it won't turn brown. I don't know if that's true.
If you leave the stone in, they won't turn brown. No,
yeah.
Oh, that's a good point, maybe. Keith in Hertford says, my fruit bowl has a Jaws-size hook to hang on the bananas. They ain't fitting in the fridge.
No, I never put bananas in the fridge, no.
Well, that's come up this morning as well.
Interesting. I think, yeah.
Why has he got the hook in the fruit bowl, though?
I get it, it just kind of hangs. It's nice looking.
Sort of off the fruit bowl.
They're quite decorative fruits, if you think about it. Colourful.
They're all right, aren't they?
Different shapes. It's quite a pretty... When you see a big bowl of fruit, I think it's quite pretty.
When you see pictures of, you know, somebody with a fruit thing on their head...
Don't see a lot of those.
You don't see a lot of those these days, don't you?
No.
I say these days as if there was there ever a day.
Yeah.
But there's a kind of sort of an exotic image somewhere of, you know, somebody carrying... I think there's a famous painting maybe of somebody with grapes and bananas and things on their heads.
I mean, when you think about it, they're almost works of art. They're quite decorative fruits.
Yeah.
You know, you get all the exotic ones, jackfruit, whatever. No, they're nice.
Yeah. Kiwi?
I'm really into like the more like expensive ones, the golden ones.
Golden kiwis?
Oh, they're so good.
I don't even know about these.
They're always ripe.
Are they?
Yeah, they're just, and they're like, they're not that hot, they're not dark green, they're like delicious.
Yeah.
I'm a kiwi snob now, so that once you've tried a golden kiwi, it's hard to go back to the furry ones.
I'm straight out to the supermarket to check this thing out.
Yeah.
If somebody's just turned their radio on, or they're watching us in Vision and thinking, what are they talking about? Why are they talking about this? There is good reason behind it, as I said, and Layla Cunningham is here for a lot more than just fruit and egg tips. And that is to talk about the big stories of the day. You are, of course, the mayoral candidate for London, for Reform UK. When does that happen?
2028.
2028. There's just been a big mayoral election in Manchester. Reform coming second.
We did come second, yeah. I'll just point out that it's in 2028, but somehow the mayor now thinks that being London mayor is not important enough, so he's gone to the House of Lords. I don't think we've ever had a frontline politician in the House of Lords in that sense. I mean, I would say there's a conflict of interest because I assume in the House of Lords you have to legislate for the country in equal measure, whereas when you're the mayor of London, you have to prioritise London. So I'm not sure how he's going to balance those two.
Yeah, it was curious that he was given that.
Very. At this point in time.
Indeed. So he's got 2 years to run on being mayor, or just under.
Just under. Could he not wait?
Yeah. So one assumes if you are given that role, you have to attend the House of Lords. Otherwise, it would be a waste in giving somebody that peerage.
But also, there's a video of him 2 years ago saying it should be abolished. It's totally wrong and it should be abolished.
They all say that until they're offered a peerage.
I know. It's crazy. So, and it's interesting because for someone who's so for the people, he's literally collected titles. You know, he's gone from Sir to Lord.
Yes, he loves a title.
He loves the title.
Mayor, Sir, Lord.
Yeah, I mean, you know...
It's just like, where does he go next after
that? Exactly that.
What comes after that?
But, I mean, yeah, I think it's remarkable. I mean, I don't think as a mayor you should be in the House of Lords at
Your campaign to become the Mayor of London, is that an ongoing thing? Is it something you're at every day, one way or another? I mean, you're not necessarily giving out leaflets in the middle of, Stratford High Street, but...
No, you can't really knock on doors this early, I think. Well, number one, London's such a transient city, issues change, opinions change. I think right now it's building awareness of the campaign and myself and what I stand for.
Sure. Let's talk about some of the other big issues. This new guidance on single-sex spaces comes into force today. So over the coming days, toilets and changing rooms that have been badged up to suggest anyone can use these, no matter who you are, whatever you think you are, want to be, come on in. That's all going. That will become, it's against, it was already, as Sharon Davis told us before the news, it was already the case, but people just bent the rules and now they're going to be bent back to where they should be.
Well, I mean, it was always madness. I remember one of my daughters had a boy who suddenly said he wanted to be a girl, and he was in the changing room with her, and she said she didn't swim anymore. She goes, Mum, it's very uncomfortable. Yeah, it's very uncomfortable to have a boy there, but we couldn't say anything at the time, in case the school was going to kick her out, or it was a very difficult situation. She felt very uncomfortable. She was 14 at the time.
I mean, that's incredible that would, particularly at that, I mean, at any age, this was bad enough, but I think for, a teenage girl to suddenly realise that one of her classmates who suddenly said, I'm going to be a girl, is then allowed to...
Yeah.
I mean, at that stage, wouldn't they have just said, you think the school will go, OK, well, however you're pursuing this, but at the moment you are, you're certainly a boy, and so you will use the boys' changing rooms. Why would that have been offensive to him?
No, exactly. And then I have a friend, actually, who moved from Switzerland to Somerset, and she went to a school, and she contacted me in despair. Her daughter, who was 11, suddenly turned completely against her and said, you're not a friend of the LGBTQ community, I'm part of that, you're an enemy. And she went to speak to the school, and the school was like, we don't want to discriminate against any relationships. And she felt that the school made her the enemy of her daughter, who she was so close to. She was completely in despair, and the school wouldn't listen. She had to take her out of it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think this happens across the country, by the way.
I think it does. And obviously teenagers do sort of gravitate to some, different causes. And
they're so vulnerable and susceptible.
Indeed. And if they think there's something's a bit right on, they might latch onto that, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
But for families to be divided, in some case ripped apart because of the indoctrination of the education system is an outrage.
An outrage. And and this was, my friend was a single mum. It's actually my goddaughter, and it was very upsetting. I was reading the emails. I couldn't believe what the school was saying.
Have they put it back together now? This relationship?
She left the school. Yeah, she has.
That's all good.
Yeah, she had to. She was very upset to be removed. No, she was very stressed. Also, she just moved back to England and put her in this school.
Yeah.
But listen, about the single sex. I mean, I can tell you, if I'm in a bar and I had a debate and a man is kind of coming onto you and you don't want it, you run to the toilet for safety.
Yeah, you don't want the bloke to follow you in there and say, I'm a woman as well.
You don't want the bloke to have the ability to run after you into the loo.
I mean, the idea that we reached a position, though, Layla, where just to declare yourself a woman made you a woman. I mean, what sort of levels of heady, bonkers insanity is this? You've just got to say you're a woman.
I know.
And you are a woman, and every institution, every employer, every establishment has to treat you as if you are a woman because you've said you are.
And if you said otherwise, you were cancelled, remember?
Yeah.
That was the madness. You weren't even allowed to argue it. It was such a strong contingency. You got attacked. You got, and they said they were fighting for inclusion for everyone. I say it was the exclusion of women. It was the exclusion of women's rights.
Yeah.
It was almost like men batting their chest again, saying, we have more rights than women.
So is this a victory for common sense?
100%. I was even reading, actually, that when the madness, and perhaps this is true, that sexual offences committed by women had gone up. But actually, it wasn't women. Women don't... It was men who identify as women.
Well, the BBC...
So it even skewed criminal data.
Yeah, the BBC had a PhD in this kind of nonsense. I noticed what they've done now is they've realised that they've lost the audience on this, and they've taken to not mentioning either way what somebody's gender is. They're just talking about a person was arrested, etc. But they would, you know, put it up there, woman accused, you know, woman arrested for X, Y, and Z, and you'd read and you'd see a picture and think, well, that's clearly not a woman.
And you read the data, and I remember reading the data thinking, wow, women are, you know, committing that many sexual offences. Yeah. And then you've got, you know, charities that are relating to, you know, ovarian cancer or things like that, or I think it was cervical, saying, you know, you have to, you can't say it's just women. It was just, and I think there's still, it's not complete chest feeding.
Chest feeding.
Insulting. Remember Brighton NHS Trust, let's shame them for saying, you know, you can't say a mother, you have to say a chest feeding. Unbelievable. It's insulting to
the thing is, you don't meet many people in the real world. You know, we speak to some of these people that advocate this kind of nonsense, but in the real world, you don't really meet anybody that thinks any of this stuff.
You don't, but you do read about it in the paper.
You do, you really do. We're going to take a short pause later. Before we do, SRF says scrambled eggs, 1 minute, 20 seconds in a microwave.
Oh. I'm not a microwave. I don't have a microwave at home.
You don't have a microwave? What's wrong with you,
well, so my
Cunningham?
mum completely resisted the microwave as we were growing up, and she put the fear of life in us.
Well, you were going to get some kind of radioactive effect from
She said it changes the molecular and nutritional makeup of food. And
I'm sure it changes something.
It changes, and so my kids are always desperate for it, but we don't have one at home.
They're a bit spooky when you think about it. You shove something in a little cup and it comes out. You know, Paul Daniels couldn't do that kind of stuff back in the day. One in from Steve, who says, Ian and Layla, morning, scrambled eggs, seasoning, mayonnaise, all beaten together, drop of grated cheese and chopped parsley. Says Steve. Sounds lovely.
I don't like mayonnaise, but I do like the cheese. The parsley's a nice touch.
Parsley's a nice touch. It looks nice on the...
Very nice. I do like it. Dill, I bet, would be quite nice as well.
It's annoying. You know, when you buy eggs and you come out with, and you do scrambled eggs, and sometimes they are beautifully yellow, and other times they're a bit pale, and you can't work it out. It's like, I'm sure I bought the same eggs.
So I would like to know what makes it yellow or orange, because there is those Clarence eggs that are more expensive that have an orange yolk.
Yeah.
And is an orange yolk better for you, or is it just what they're fed?
Let's get a voice note. This comes from Paul on single-sex basis with, I think, a question for Layla on this. Here it is.
Hi, Ian. It's Paul from Portsmouth. Look, I've got a friend who I've known for many years who's a trans man. That is, he was a woman, a girl, and he transferred into a man. If you met him now, he looks exactly like a man. You would never think that he was born female. And yet, under this new rules, he's going to be obliged to go into women's toilets. So you're going to effectively have someone who looks like a bloke going into a woman's toilet. What's he supposed to do?
I did raise this point earlier on, and a few people had a pop at me. I wasn't stipulating what the answer was. I was merely raising that very question. And somebody here called Woman67 says, you and Nigel Evans discussing single-sex spaces was typical of why women's spaces and rights are being eroded. I really don't care if a man in a dress is embarrassed about going to the men's. They were born male and they will always be a man. I wasn't raising that. I wasn't questioning that reality. I was questioning the manifestation of the physical moment when a bloke that literally looks like a woman, or in the case that Paul's just raised, the other way round, when it's somebody born female that looks like a bloke, beard, muscles, all the rest of it, has now got to walk into your changing room, Layla.
Well, I reckon they'll just use the men's one, and no one will know any different.
I think that's likely to be the case.
I mean, if you think of on a practical level, who's going to question him if he really does look like a guy?
A lot of the people that were doing this, by the way, I keep saying this, and I absolutely believe this, that were walking into changing rooms, whether it's changing rooms in shops, a friend told me a story of a friend of hers that used to do this, were not trans people. They were people who were obsessed with identity politics and politically just thought, I'm going to stir it up. I'm going to walk in and go, I'm a woman, and you can't stop me.
Right.
They didn't really believe it.
Right. I haven't seen that. Do people do that?
My belief is that the real argument here doesn't come from the average person that transitioned.
No.
I mean, you can't. I mean, the word transition.
Because I think they just go about their day, you know,
yes,
quietly.
because this was never a discussion 6-7 years ago.
And no one even knows.
I think it just comes from people politically who want to say, I'm non-binary, and therefore I refuse to use that toilet or that toilet. You're discriminating against
I think
me.
it's troublemakers.
It's a victim culture.
It's troublemakers, yeah.
Completely. Are we taking a short pause here? We are, Christian, aren't we? Short pause. We're back with more from Layla in a couple of minutes. We've done the food advice.
Right.
We've done safe spaces. We'll move on to Andy Burnham and his early release scheme and more coming next on Talk.
The fact they're being released after 6 years is a slap in the face for the family. It's a slap in the face for you and all of Andrew's colleagues as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more than a slap in the face. Quite honestly, it's rubbing salt in wounds that have never healed from 7 years ago. And the thing with this news that we've got today is there's no deterrent that I see for individuals who commit these heinous crimes, and particularly who take an officer's life in the execution of their duty.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back. 28 minutes after 9 o'clock. Layla Cunningham is with us, Reform UK's mayoral candidate for London. We're talking about a whole range of things, from the light-hearted egg debate, which we carried on during the break there as well.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
We even got into plunge pools as well.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story. Let's look at this, though. The police are fuming, and there it is, front page of The Sun. See you in court, Prime Minister, it says there. This is the Police Federation vowing to take the government to court over the early release of the killers of PC Andrew Harper. Andrew died a horrific death because of the brutal decisions made by these horrific people. But it wasn't murder, it was manslaughter. That's the legality of it. Nonetheless, they are due still for early release. I don't know how they've got on that list, Layla, to be honest.
I'm speechless because, I mean, justice isn't just about managing prison numbers. It's about protecting the public and giving justice to victims. And listen, prison numbers, it's not a surprise. It's not something that springs up on you. They've known about this for 2 years. No one disputes that the Conservatives woefully underbuilt. I think they only built like 500 new ones. But why didn't they just build some? Yes. Why is the choice to release them as opposed to building prisons?
We've been talking about, I've certainly been talking about this long enough on the radio that goes back over at least a decade. No one's going to tell me you can't build a prison in a decade.
Rent capacity abroad if you can't do it.
That's a good point.
You know, just do whatever it takes. Just don't release these prisoners. And you know what's really must be really upsetting to the victims is that they know they've done something wrong because they have to apologise to the victims.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know, we know this is really hurtful. We know you might feel unsafe, but we're going to do it anyway. What kind of how do they expect these people to think the government has their back?
On a serious point, because you've been a prosecutor, you are a lawyer by trade, and you've worked in very senior positions because of that. Is it fair to say that as we move through the sort of the years as humans and we look at different systems, that prison is not the right place for some crime? There are other ways of punishing people. Now, the only problem I have with that very simple notion is that if I went out and nicked a car tomorrow, I wouldn't go to jail. If I nicked one again the following week, I wouldn't go to jail. I'd probably have to do that 27 times before I went to jail. So what I'm saying is, most people who end up in jail have already experienced quite a lot of non-custodial punishments anyway. So
the thing is, so I've prosecuted a lot of ex-veterans or drug addicts or alcoholics who they're not really criminals, right? They're doing it to feed their addiction.
Yeah.
And if we managed to cure their addiction, they would stop committing crime. But we don't have a system that addresses that. So what we do is we're like, you know what, we're going to give you this custodial sentence, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you a drug rehabilitation order and alcohol. This is my dream and it's not reform policy or anything. I would like to see a prison that's dedicated to they don't get out until they're clean.
Yeah.
And then they would not reoffend. And they beg us sometimes in the dock, Ian, please help me, I don't want to do this. Some of them are 50, 60 years old. They're like, I don't want to. And there's nothing we do for them.
Yeah.
And we send them back out to the same streets. And why I would just like a place where you're like, you can only come out once you're clean. And I can guarantee that prison spaces will be open up and we'll have a lot of reoffending. But then also you have the proper criminals, right? Yeah. The murderers, the rapists, even the shoplifters, and they have to be punished. There has to be a zero tolerance approach to that kind of crime. And you talk about manslaughter. I met a lady whose son was stabbed to death, and the murderer was charged with murder but was convicted of manslaughter. And obviously she's heartbroken about that. Of course. Long list of offences, but as he was a teenager, he committed this as an adult, and he's going to get out when he's like, you know, in his mid-30s. Yeah. I mean, it's... And he might be, you know, because they're releasing manslaughter, he might be one of the... It is a government failure not to have enough prisons. But it's the victims that are paying for it. And the public. I can't even quite work out. It sounds terrible saying this working in a newsroom and doing what I do for a living, but I can never quite work out, are they in the process of even building another prison? No, exactly. We didn't exactly that. I mean, I would give them a little bit of wiggle room if there was one on the way. If they said, well, you know, we've got to, don't worry, next June, there's a massive one opening. Yeah. But is that not the case? I mean, what's going on exactly out there? You know, because they'll definitely tell us about all the army barracks they're going to house asylum seekers in. Yes. Or all the HMOs they're building. You're exactly right. Are they even building anymore, or have they just given up? Yeah, I mean, especially in terms of domestic abuse. So I've prosecuted a lot of domestic abuse trials, and for that person to think that they're because it's not a random attack, right? They know them, right? And they normally blame the victim for sending them to prison. Yeah. Right. So there will be retribution. You know, a lot of the times the victims... So they've gone to jail angry. You see messages, some of them, they say, you testify, I'm coming to get you. Yeah. You know, you see it, and the victims, so many victims pull out because they're like, I'm so scared, I don't want to do it. But you assure them, we'll get a conviction and they'll go to prison and you'll be safe, right? And now you're like, actually, no, they're coming out early and you might not be safe. And we even heard that the tagging system is not that effective. And that, you'd think, by now, AI... GPS, all the things in terms of technology that you can do, that would be, by now, that would be as foolproof as you can get. That the tagging system, coupled with curfews, would be... I've always thought that surely is, you know, kids carrying, you know, knives on the streets of particularly a place like London. So you're 14, 15, you're not going to go to jail for that, certainly for a first offence. So surely the answer is you tag that kid and they're on a curfew, a perpetual curfew. They never come out the house. And... if that worked, then
I can't see why that wouldn't be almost the go-to for that particular cohort. So youngsters with knives who know, perhaps not having much sympathy here, but they know no better. That's the life they've grown up in. It's their peers around them are all doing the same thing. Stick them on a tag, get them on a curfew. But that doesn't really happen, does it?
No, I mean, they are, but they breach the curfew. Or they and then they come to court and they're like, I breached the curfew because I didn't know, I couldn't catch the tube, and it's lenient and it's allowed. But going back to domestic abuse, what people don't realise is these women, they don't move out of their community. They're in the same community that they've always lived in. He knows all the movement. Some of them have children. You know, they're in a very precarious situation, and actually because of domestic abuse they're meant to be dealt with very expeditiously. But I've dealt with them where it has not been dealt with expeditiously because of forensic evidence, you know, things have, and these women are homeless after that. Until he's put in prison, the women have to leave the house if they don't have kids, and some of them are homeless or put in shelters, and then they move back when they're in prison.
Of course.
And now that they're being released, how do these women feel?
What happens then?
What happens then?
The idea that there could be thousands of domestic abusers in this early release programme seems extraordinary. Just a question that came through on reforms policies on this. You said, you know, in your ideal world you'd have a kind of an addicts prison, as it were. You said
for certain people,
yeah, for certain people. You made it clear that wasn't a reform policy.
No.
That was just something you
I have the experience from being a prosecutor.
From being a prosecutor. Do reform, however, have a plan to build more prisons?
Yeah, 100%. So we will have overseas prisons. We will deport all foreign prisoners to their point of origin. You know, like Labour has done with some, by the way. Do you remember one of an illegal migrant from Ethiopia? They sent him back straight away.
Yeah.
You know, there was no returns agreement, or they had no problem with that.
Why can't that just happen?
Why can't that just happen now? So that's one thing we do. So we should free up about 12,000 spaces just doing that. And we'd rent abroad and we'd build prefab ones if needed.
Yeah.
You know what's worse is the lady who I interviewed, the murderer, within a few years was moved to a category B with a phone, and she saw social media posts of him rolling a joint, having the life in prison, smoking. Wow. Imagine how heartbreaking that is.
And he'd killed her son.
He'd killed her son with one stab wound. Son never involved in drugs, gangs,
nothing. At all.
Lovely boy, happened to be at a nightclub, and these guys drove to sell drugs to the kids coming out of the nightclub, and literally one of the guys was like, what are you looking at? And he goes, what? Nothing. And that's how.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Let's take a call. This is Ed down in London. On immigration, Ed, morning to you.
Hi, Ian.
Hi.
Yeah, I've got a solution for this migrant sort of fiasco that seems to go on for decades now.
Yes.
You know, we know that the French will never, ever cooperate with the UK. We know that even if Reform were in power, it's going to cost shed loads of money to, you know, maybe hire a liner, refit the liner, pay for the staffing of the liner, fill it with people, sail it to some country, and then have to pay them shed loads of money to take the people off the liner. The easiest and cheapest solution would be to get the migrant smugglers to reverse their game. If we were to pay the migrant smugglers direct a fee for not preventing,
You're sort of reverse engineering the problem.
Well, exactly, yes. So let them police the beaches, and we would deduct.
It's a very good point. Let me just put this to Layla, Ed. I mean, it sounds, and I'm sure, Ed, you would admit to that, I don't mean this unkindly, it's a situation or a suggestion like that should just be bonkers, but it isn't in a curious way. It would probably be cheaper to pay the bloke who's hiring out the boat £1,000 apiece and stop the crossings.
You'd hire him as an informant. Right?
Well, I guess
it's almost like when you want to bust a mafia, or you'd hire someone within the organisation that would be an informant that would frustrate all the potentially, you know. What I find amazing is that these illegal migrants come in. They've obviously dealt with the people who brought them in, and we don't extract any intelligence from them.
That's right.
I'd be like, you know what, you will not set foot in this country, you will not get asylum. Not that I think they should get asylum in any event, but if you are going to give them asylum, you're like, we're going to go on a boat right now, you're going to take me to your handler in Calais.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And we're going to arrest him, or else you're not getting anything. Why do we not use them for intelligence?
And also, the smash, as far as I can ascertain, the only gang leaders that have been caught And I hate to give the BBC any credit, but I think there's a couple of BBC journalists that managed to get in touch with these people. I don't know whether they got caught, but they interviewed them. Now, if a journalist at the flipping BBC can interview someone, I'm sure MI6 can manage to find the same intel that would take them to the same place.
I don't understand. You've got thousands of people, you've got thousands of informants, and they don't care anymore. They just want to come to the country. Just use them and take them back. You've got they must have the numbers, the emails. How did you communicate with them? Where are they located? Go to the source if they're in Morocco, if they're wherever. Just do it.
Yeah, you'd think so.
We have the best security services in the world.
Yeah, right. Layla, Ed, thank you very much indeed for your call. Layla, we've hit the clock.
Oh, it's what a shame.
On a great appearance on the show, because of course it included some culinary advice from the beginning.
Always.
Had no idea
Sadly,
of your...
I don't have one I made earlier.
Which would have been lovely,
Which would
wouldn't
have
it?
been
Your
great.
proclivity for the egg is now national news. And the golden kiwi, was it?
Golden kiwi, try it.
Golden kiwi.
They're not cheap, but you'll thank me.
When you say not cheap, they're not like 100 quid a kiwi.
No, it's like £2 as opposed to... No, it's probably like £1 each.
OK.
Because, you know, you can get like 3 kiwis, I think, for £1.50.
Right, but these would be a quid a piece.
Double, but they're...
OK, the
also,
golden
they're full,
kiwi.
they're fleshy.
The golden kiwi. I can see your face
kiwi.
light up when you think of it.
It's from... yeah, they're good.
We will speak to you next week, Layla.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Layla
Thank
Cunningham,
you.
with us here on the programme. Let's get a voice note back to that tricky issue of what to put in a fridge. Here's Damon. Morning, Damon.
Good morning, Ian. Damon from Wigan. You talking about putting things in the fridge, or the subject of putting things in the fridge. During the hot weather, I've actually been putting sell-by dates on myself, and I've been sitting myself in the fridge.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Yeah, welcome back. Moving towards the hour. Julia Hartley-Brewer, of course, here after the news at 10 o'clock. Looking forward to that. She'll nip in between now and then and tell us more about what is going on. Zarina says about illegal migrants. I must add that we have to stop all free handouts, leave it to the do-gooders and the charities to deal with. If these people want to bankrupt themselves as they put their allegiances with criminals first, then let them. Why should we continue to be poorer as a nation, as individuals, and continue to let our institutions like schools fall into disrepair? I'm sorry for my strong feelings, but at my wit's end over this matter. Is the only problem... I don't know this, by the way. I'm just trying to imagine what a politician might say in response. If you said, right, if you get to Dover, there is no accommodation for you, do you just end up with tented communities like you've got in northern France happening in southern England? Would that be the case? And then they hang around and hope for the best. I don't know. I'm surmising. Lots to talk about here. Annunziata Rees-Mogg is with us, Head of Comms for Popular Conservatism. Good morning to you.
Morning, Ian. How are you?
Very good. Nice to have you with us. And you join us, of course, on a momentous day where common sense has prevailed and we can all correctly identify what a female and a male toilet look like.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yes, finally, the guidance is out and will be enforced. But it's going to apparently cost around £700 million to undo the complete craziness of thinking that humans with penises are women and that women don't have the right to their own spaces, which we have done for generations. How did we get to a point where rape crisis centres can have people capable of rape in them? How could we have got to a place where women's prisons, where the most vulnerable in our society go, are put in that same situation? And why is undoing it so phenomenally difficult? I noticed that they think it's going to cost 700 million quid, most of which is in the private sector because they followed the law as the government explained it. But a lot of that's going to be spent on retraining.
Retraining people's minds to know what a man is or a woman. I mean, I would have the bit I can't understand, Annunziata, on this is in many cases, surely it's a case of just taking a sticker off a door and putting the appropriate one back on.
It absolutely should be. And very few places went down the road of getting rid of women's loos entirely. Lots and lots of places have separate disabled loos that are gender neutral by definition. It seems ludicrous that these costs are going to be so high just to do what is blatantly obvious and always should have been. We were overtaken by a decade or so of madness. And thank goodness there is now clarity. But of course, you've got the Greens, whose councils are looking at what they can do to ignore this law and maintain the old status quo.
I mean, I find it. I mean, this 700 million figure, which you correctly refer to as the projected costs of the compliance and restructuring costs. And, you know, you mentioned training as well. I mean, for goodness sake, please, will somebody give it a rest? You've got to have training to be told that that toilet door over there is for the men and that one's for the women. What kind of training? I mean, if I could make some bucks out of this, I might put myself forward as a company doing loo training for members of vulnerable staff.
Absolutely. We wonder why in this country, particularly in the public sector, we've got a productivity issue. We've got a productivity issue because people are wasting time on being taught things that we all already know. You shouldn't have to have a tick box society where you have to understand the biological difference between a man and a woman. Children learn that very young. Quite often, you know, about the birds and the bees, but it is something we all intrinsically know, and it shouldn't require training that just adds costs to everything we do.
Absolutely spot on. We spoke to Sharon Davis a little earlier, the former Olympic medalist, of course, and, well, she's still an Olympic medalist, former swimmer, and campaigns on these areas as well. And, of course, she mentioned correctly another area to add to this list of insanity is that of men in women's sports. And we've seen quite a lot of this in the world of swimming, the world of boxing as well, which takes it to another rather more dangerous level.
Absolutely. Sharon Davis has been a phenomenal campaigner on this issue, and there have started to be changes. Thank goodness, because not only is it clearly unfair that men do have higher muscle mass, they tend to have, on average, which all of this does come down to, the averages, they are larger, stronger, and have different bodies that can do some sports far better than women can. But it's dangerous. And it's not just boxing where it's dangerous, but women's rugby. It's incredibly dangerous if you've got men on the field. And thank goodness sports are beginning to see sense.
We certainly hope so. Another issue that we should ask you about while you're on with us as well is that of the sort of the Andy Burnham early release scheme. Now, in fairness to Mr Burnham, he inherited this from Keir Starmer. He did, again, don't like using the phrase too much, in fairness to Mr Burnham, he put a pause on it and said, like, we've got to look at, see, you know, exactly who we're releasing here. And they came up with some categories. I mean, the whole thing is a bit bizarre anyway, that we are even examining an early release programme. But when we've got nearly 10,000 domestic abusers that are set to be released, I would suggest that comes into a very dangerous category. You know, these are dangerous people. We were sort of told it will be non-violent people that will be released. So we've got domestic abusers. We've also got the killers of the police officer Andrew Harper as well. I mean, surely it's not beyond the capability and the authority of a Home Secretary to say, I'm sorry, those two categories, no, you're not coming out early.
I mean, I'm afraid to say, I know he's only a couple of weeks into the job and obviously he's already gone on holiday, but Andy Burnham just hasn't been straight on this, has he? He said he was going to have a review and it wouldn't happen, it would be stopped pending the review. Well, the review's already been done. That's not a review. That's someone glancing at a piece of paper and concluding nothing to see here. And manslaughter has been excluded. There are not enough spaces in order to keep people guilty of manslaughter in prison. There are not enough spaces for, as you say, 9,300 domestic abusers over the next 3 years, 3,000 a year. I think Layla was just on saying that foreign criminals should be sent back to the countries they come from. Absolutely they should. And I saw Kemi Badenoch said so yesterday as part of the Tory policy, alongside building more jails. Yeah. But there's over 10,000 foreign criminals in our jails. Even if the countries in question sent back all our criminals, if every British criminal in a foreign jail was sent back here, that's about 2,000 people. We would overnight free up over 8,000 spaces that would mean the domestic abusers and the manslaughter perpetrators were kept in prison. Victims need justice and criminals need to serve their time. This policy is a complete betrayal of the British people.
I find it extraordinary. The barometer for me about, you know, when governments tell us, and, you know, I can speak to former ministers who are at the coalface of many of these kind of stories, whether it's about migration, whether it's about prisons, and they will talk about the sort of impenetrable nature of, I don't know, the civil service or whatever, or the difficulty in coming up with a plan that the French are going to agree with or that unions are going to agree with, depending on the issue. I always look to COVID as the litmus test of what a government can do if it really feels it needs to. And of course what we saw there was this unprecedented closing down, something we'd never seen before. It went further than the kind of curfews during the war and all that went with it. It was the most phenomenal, I don't say that as a positive, but merely just to describe the enormity of it, the most phenomenal exercise in state overreach I think we've ever experienced and hopefully will never see again. But it proved one thing, that if a government want to do something, as ambitious, good or bad, as it might be, they can do it. They set themselves essentially a new line in the sand for government capability. And yet we haven't seen anywhere near that level of organised statism since then. Because they're telling us that they can close an entire country, close businesses, schools, even some medical establishments can all be closed, but we can't stop a rubber boat coming over the channel. We can't house dangerous people in places where they can't escape. I mean, this seems extraordinary, and this is the 21st century, not the 16th.
What was it, 10 days they took to set up Nightingale hospitals?
Yes.
And we can't provide a few extra secure places. The forecast of costs for building new prisons is £1 million per cell. This is absurd. You don't need every luxury in prison. You need a building that is secure and you need guards. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. We should be able to do this overnight. We should be able to turn the open prisons into secure ones. We should be able to turn places that they're using for the illegal migrants who shouldn't be here into the open prisons. This could be done if there's a will. And as you say, during COVID, the government demonstrated that when it has a will, things can be done, and they can be done quickly.
Yeah.
This needs to be done quickly. Labour's already had 2 years. It's no good still blaming the Tories. They should have been building more prison places this whole time.
Annunziata, thank you for your time. Have a great day. Really good to see you as ever. Annunziata Rees-Mogg, Head of Comms at Popular Conservatism. Thank you to her. A couple of comments on this. Carl says, could old prisons be refurbished and used? Shepton Mallet Prison is used for tours. What a waste. It's a fair point, isn't it? Every time that comes up, you often hear, I heard a former prison governor making the point that they're not safe, as in, you know, they're a bit cold and there's some leakage, and I don't know what the deal is. That apparently goes with the territory. You can't just open any old cell. It's got to be a little bit, you know, a bit of IKEA in there as well. And what about bunk beds? I hear that one from time to time, says Benny Boy. Yeah, why not? Every cell. This is Talk. We'll talk to Julia next.
We've been on the beaches for 2 days running. Both days we've been hassled by the local French police. They've turned up armed to the teeth, looking very aggressive. We've had to arm ourselves, actually, with gas masks. They're checking our ID, wanting to know what we're doing here. They should show as much enthusiasm, I think, with the migrants. They seem to be waving them through and hassling us. But this morning, they asked for my ID. I told them to clear off. I said, you got it yesterday. You're not hassling me on the beach on my morning stroll.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed Talk. Coming up to 10 o'clock. That means only one thing, that Julia Hartley-Brewer returns to the fold for another big show.
Really good. Yeah, well, there's quite a lot to talk about. This August silly season thing, I've said this so many times. I mean, for 10 years I've been on the station saying these things, but we used to have just a really easy silly season. So the silly season, well, actually it is silly, isn't it? Because apparently women are supposed to use women's toilets and men's use men's toilets. I mean, this is obviously, according to trans groups, completely unworkable.
Seriously?
So there's your silly season story, people. I know, isn't it weird?
Just use anyone you like. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. Why would it matter if your 13-year-old daughter is confronted by a large bloke, you know, in a toilet? Why would it matter to anyone? Stop making a fuss.
A lot of crazy people out there, Julia. That's all I'm saying. You
transphobes out there.
Yeah.
You're going to be talking about that. The domestic abusers who are going to be released. Camille Badenoch selecting this, well, allowing the party to select her former neo-Nazi as a Tory candidate.
Okay, for